Chapter 2540, Blade Demon. The eyes of Tian Shang, Jin Yan, and the other chaotic primes narrowed. They became fixated on the streak of black light that flew over and became stern. They were also feeling some surprise and disbelief. It's the demonic castle of the Empyrean demon cult. They've actually intruded upon the territory of our Cloud Surge Empire. What are they doing? What speed? Isn't that the demonic castle of the Empyrean demon cult? Their demonic castle was only a low-quality god artifact in the past, but it's actually a high-quality god artifact now. High-quality god artifact. There are so many presences of experts. Even the legendary army of death has appeared. Oh no, the Empyrean demon cult is attacking our Cloud Surge Empire. The expressions of the subjects all changed drastically. Their Cloud Surge Empire stood supreme on the Delight Plane, and it even possessed enough strength to unite the entire plane at any time. They did not take any peak organizations on the plane seriously. Only the Empyrean demon cult, an organization that was basically second-rate on the Delight Plane, could invoke fear in the Cloud Surge Empire. This was because the Empyrean demon cult had established branches across the Saints' world. These branches would usually be led by infinite primes, which was why they were second-rate organizations on a few planes. However, many experts of the Saints' world understood that once the Empyrean demon cult united all their strength, they would be extremely terrifying. They could easily kill most peak experts in the Saints' world. The Empyrean demon cult was the same as the Cloud Surge Empire. They also possessed the support of someone extremely terrifying, their legendary Grand Elder. Tian Shang, Jin Yan, and the other chaotic primes were unaware of just how powerful the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult was. They only knew that the heavenless demon Exalt of the Cloud Plane had been easily slain by him. Of course, that alone was not enough to cause Tian Shang and the others to begin panicking. After all, the Cloud Surge Empire had the Rain Abyss. That kept their empire stable. The real reason for all this came from over 100,000 years ago. Back then, the Emperor of the Cloud Surge Empire was about to send experts to eliminate the Empyrean demon cult, but they ended up drawing out the Rain Abyss. The Rain Abyss had personally ordered them to not provoke the Empyrean demon cult. It was exactly because of this event that all the experts of the Cloud Surge Empire truly developed fear towards the Empyrean demon cult. As a result, now that the Empyrean demon cult had come to make trouble, they all became stern. The Black Divine Hall seemed to sense their existence. Its trajectory changed slightly, and it slammed towards them. It surged with energy as powerful demonic aura formed a black cloud along the way, blotting out the sky. Dodge! The strongest among these subjects, Jin Yan, called out and vanished in an instant. The expressions of the other subjects all changed drastically. They all dodged frantically. The Divine Hall was a high-quality god artifact. It was extremely powerful. The energy it gave off was enough to force the chaotic primes to dodge. That was because high-quality god artifacts were usually the weapons of grand primes. At the same time, a dense layer of mist suddenly appeared, enveloping the entire imperial city. Lightning flickered and thunder rumbled within the dense clouds. Torrential rain fell, making the entire imperial city disappear in the rain. The most powerful formation in the Cloud Surge Empire, the formation of Cloud Surge and Rain Flood, had been activated. The Divine Hall from the Empyrean demon cult was not under the control of a Grand Prime, so it was very difficult to unleash its power. It failed to strike Tian Shang and the others and collided into the formation instead. Boom! Immediately, a deafening rumble rang out. The collision of the Divine Hall and the formation was far too astonishing. Not only did it crack the ground outside the imperial capital, forming huge chasm upon huge chasm, but even the space there collapsed into nothingness. Deep, frantic war drums rang out from within the formation. With the drums, all the power hidden within the imperial capital was mobilized. The current emperor, Yi Zhan, hovered in the air with the imperial seal in his hand. He was stern and cold, standing there silently. Su Ran appeared outside the Divine Hall and formation silently. She directly locked onto Tian Shang and struck out without a second thought. It's the Tian Yuan clan. The Tian Yuan clan has actually banded together with the Empyrean demon cult to besiege our Cloud Surge Empire. Tian Shang's face immediately changed, and he cried out when he saw Su Ran. He had already witnessed Su Ran's strength previously, so he did not want to fight against her at all. The moment he saw Su Ran, he started planning a path of retreat. He immediately approached Jin Yen. Among all the subjects present, only Jin Yen had the power to fight Su Ran. Humph, Tian Yuan clan, from now onwards, you are the enemy of our Cloud Surge Empire. We will definitely destroy you. Jin Yen snorted coldly in his red armor. Flames radiated from his body. The terrifying heat seemed to be able to burn space. As if he had become a god of fire, the flames around him roared as the power of the laws of fire wrapped around him. He directly attacked Su Ran with his halberd. However, at this moment, there was a dazzling flash, and a black figure silently appeared outside the divine hall. He surged with demonic aura. He held a blood-red blade, which he slashed towards Jin Yen from 10,000 meters away. The attack was filled with killing intent. As it fell, it seemed to slice the world in half. It shot through the air like it was unstoppable. One of the 5 generals of the Empyrean demon cult, Blade Demon. Jin Yan's expression changed drastically. He became extremely stern. The flames on him surged as his terrifying presence climbed. He pulled back the halberd that he swung at Su Ran and placed it before him. Clang! The light and the halberd collided. The medium-quality god artifact halberd in Jin Yan's hands actually broke as the sound rang out, having been snapped in half. Even a white mark appeared on his red armor. Jin Yan's expression was extremely ugly. He looked at Blade Demon with deep fear and no longer wanted to fight. He turned around and charged towards the formation behind him. Jin Yan, I've already waited for this day for 50,000 years. Don't you even think about running. Blade Demon's voice boomed out from within the demonic aura. He lifted his blood-red blade again and swung it towards Jin Yan with the rhythm of the world, producing a streak of resplendent light. The strike this time was even more terrifying than the last. It shone like a scorching sun, illuminating the surroundings and filling it with endless blade intent. Swish! The streak of light locked onto Jin Yan's presence, preventing him from escaping. It cut through Jin Yan's body with a bright flash. Immediately, Jin Yan stiffened. The next moment, his entire body split open right down the middle, falling down as 2 pieces. His soul failed to escape, having been wiped out there. In just 2 attacks, the 6th heavenly layer chaotic prime, Jin Yan, had died. Chapter 2541, The Heaven Linking Bridge, Subject Jin. Tian Shang and the other subjects of the Cloud Surge Empire cried out. They became extremely pale as their faces became filled with fear. Jin Yan was a 6th heavenly layer chaotic prime, more powerful than any of them, yet he had been slain so quickly. This matter had quite an impact on them. Quick, run, enter the formation, quick, the subjects were all frantic. They cried out as they desperately scurried towards the imperial capital behind them. Blade Demon did not continue fighting after killing Jin Yan. Demonic aura permeated his surroundings, only revealing a dark figure. His true appearance was concealed. He hovered to the side of the divine hall like a demonic god as he stared at the formation of Cloud Surge and Rainflood up ahead coldly. Su Ran struck out once again. Brimming with killing intent, she directly targeted Tian Shang. She had already received Jian Chen's request to kill Tian Shang with everything that she had. They needed Tian Shang's blood to nullify Protector Shui's venom, and the essence that newbies had lost needed Tian Shang to make up for. Tian Shang had become their greatest target. You're dreaming if you want to kill me. Tian Shang called out when he noticed Su Ran charging towards him aggressively. Green, venomous mist immediately enveloped him. Su Ran's hand struck the mist with terrifying might, causing the space there to collapse. However, Tian Shang had already vanished. Tian Shang was extremely great at fleeing, not to mention that he was already ready to run. As a result, Su Ran failed to even touch his clothes. Enter the formation of cloud surge and rain flood if you want to kill me. Tian Shang's sneer rang out from the formation. The formation had been personally cast down by the rain abyss. It was the Cloud Surge Empire's final line of defense. All the experts of the Cloud Surge Empire held great confidence in the formation. This was because the formation could not be destroyed as long as no one more powerful than the rain abyss appeared. Su Ran smiled mysterious as she looked at the formation before her. She murmured, "If you were outside, I really wouldn't be able to kill you with your ability to escape, but now that you've entered the formation, your death has become set in stone." When Tian Shang fled, the 4 other subjects he had gathered scurried into the formation as well. The Empyrean demon cult did not try to kill them off on the spot. After all, they were only attacking the Cloud Surge Empire this time for some items. They did not want to destroy the empire. Empyrean demon cult, our Cloud Surge Empire has always respected you and kept our distance, so why are you launching such a great attack against us? A heavy voice rang out from within the formation. This was the voice of the current emperor, Yi Zhan. His voice was filled with uncontrollable fury. No one answered Yi Zhan. However, at this moment, a fist-sized bridge floated out from the divine hall. It was small but detailed, carved from some type of jade. It shone with rainbow light. Yi Zhan hovered above the imperial palace within the capital. Even though his expression was very ugly, he remained extremely composed inside. He was fearless. With the formation of Cloud Surge and Rain Flood, Yi Zhan did not worry about the imperial capital falling to the Empyrean demon cult's attack. The formation was extremely wondrous and possessed the power of the world. It was impenetrable. However, when he saw the rainbow bridge that extended from the divine hall through the formation, he could no longer remain composed. His expression immediately changed drastically, and he cried out, "A heaven-linking bridge. It's a heaven-linking bridge." The Empyrean demon cult has even forged a heaven-linking bridge. Many primordial realm experts gathered around Yi Zhan. When they heard that, their faces changed suddenly, becoming extremely ugly. A heaven-linking bridge. It's actually a legendary heaven-linking bridge. It's said that the heaven-linking bridge is the killer of all formations in the world. The bridge can bypass them all. No, it can't bypass all formations, only most of them. Heaven-linking bridges are divided into various levels as well. The higher their level, the more powerful the formations that they can get through. The Empyrean demon cult has drawn a heaven-linking bridge at this moment. See, can this heaven-linking bridge pass through the protective formation of our Cloud Surge Empire, the formation of Cloud Surge and Rain Flood? Impossible. The formation was personally cast down by the Rain Abyss, so it's the best of the best. It's impossible for the Empyrean demon cult's heaven-linking bridge to be on a higher level than the formation of Cloud Surge and Rain Flood. All the primordial realm experts in the Imperial Palace were unsettled. Once they lost the protection of the formation, a bloody battle would unfold against the Empyrean demon cult. At this moment, the bridge shone with a dazzling glow and became colossal in an instant. It was tens of thousand kilometers long, forming quite a shocking sight. It hung high in the sky like a bridge that was connected to heaven. One side of the bridge hovered above the divine hall, while the other end directly pierced through the formation. Immediately, the formation trembled. As if it was under the influence of some mysterious power, its operation became rather sluggish. At the same time, all the people in the imperial capital saw the huge bridge worm its way through the formation like a huge dragon, landing on the ground heavily with a deep rumble. It caused the ground to shake. All the experts in the imperial palace became extremely stern. The heaven-linking bridge actually managed to bypass the formation of Cloud Surge and Rain Flood. They all sensed an ill omen as a result. Everyone, prepare for battle. I've already contacted the ancestors, and they should return very soon. We only need to keep them busy until then, called out the Emperor of the Cloud Surge Empire, Yi Zhan. The heaven-linking bridge was indestructible, so the entry of the Empyrean demon cult could not be stopped. They could only engage them in a bloody battle now. Outside, the divine hall of the Empyrean demon cult had already flown onto the heaven-linking bridge, gradually approaching the formation. Countless bolts of lightning appeared within the formation, shooting towards the divine hall as terrifying spears. At the same time, endless, torrential rain bombarded the divine hall destructively with the power of waves. The formation launched brutal attacks. Every bolt of lightning and every droplet of rain was extremely terrifying. They possessed enough power to shake up the world, enough to easily kill some peak experts. The attacks were endless, coming wave after wave to stop the divine hall's advance. The divine hall endured the attack of the storm as it slowly slid across the bridge. Its speed was limited. If it were not for the fact that the divine hall was a high-quality god artifact, it probably would have collapsed under the attacks of the formation already. When the divine hall passed over Jin Yan's corpse, a figure emerged from inside. He hid below it and landed on the ground silently, stowing Jin Yan's severed corpse into his space ring. The figure was Jian Chen. The corpse of a sixth heavenly layer chaotic prime is great nourishment for the immortal devouring orchid. It's just a pity that his space ring is gone, Jian Chen murmured. He carefully dodged the spatial cracks in the surroundings and charged back into the divine hall with a swish. Of the surging clouds and flooding rain, transformed the sky into the world. The emperor of the Cloud Surge Empire, Yi Zhan, bellowed out. He lifted the imperial seal high into the air, and it immediately shone with dazzling light, seemingly fusing with the formation. Immediately, the space within the formation distorted. A mysterious power appeared, isolating the space and forging another world. It sealed the divine hall there. The divine hall came to a halt. The space and its surroundings distorted as time descended into chaos. The formation created line upon line of seals, seemingly creating another world to keep the divine hall trapped there. Yi Zhan had used the power of the formation to restrain the divine hall. After all, the divine hall was a high-quality god artifact. It was impenetrable. If he allowed it to rampage in the imperial city, no one there would be able to stop it. The divine hall shone brightly as it erupted with terrifying power. Surging demonic aura filled the surroundings, reducing it to darkness. The divine hall began to counterattack, coming into conflict with the formation. The formation began to tremble, and the space that kept the divine hall trapped trembled as well. It became very unstable, showing signs of collapse. My cultivation is far too low. I can only unleash a portion of the formation's power. Yi Zhan was stern. He looked at the imperial seal in his hand before biting the tip of his tongue resolutely. He sprayed a mouthful of essence blood onto the imperial seal. Immediately, the imperial seal shone with dazzling light. The power that the formation displayed immediately increased slightly. As this all happened, the Grand Elder of the Empyrean demon cult, Qingming, sat in the air within the divine hall as a soul. He was stern. His hands constantly moved about before him, forming seals. He used a secret technique his master had passed onto him to control the divine hall. A droplet of blood hovered above his head. The energy in the blood was extremely powerful. At this moment, slivers of energy scattered from the droplet of blood with Qingming's seals, fusing into the divine hall. The main energy source powering the divine hall was this droplet of blood. The droplet of blood from Master can only power this divine hall for 3 days. We have to retreat after 3 days, thought Qingming. The time that they had was extremely short. It's just a pity that the original owner of this divine hall died at the hands of Master, and the artifact spirit held grudges, refusing to yield the entire time. In the end, he was mercilessly slain by Master. If I had the artifact spirit's assistance, controlling the divine hall would be much easier. As soon as he thought of that, Qingming felt that it was a great pity. However, he called out soon afterwards and formed a strange seal with both hands before pressing them onto the ground. Immediately, a beam of black light shot out from the divine hall. Chapter 2543, The Army of Death. The Empyrean demon cult formally clashed with the Cloud Surge Empire. Regular soldiers faced regular soldiers as primordial realm experts faced primordial realm experts. The entire imperial capital was shrouded by surging demonic aura. The armies of the Cloud Zerg Empire were not weak either. They were elites composed of god kings, and all of them stood in battle formations against the Empyrean demon cult. However, the Empyrean demon cult outnumbered the Cloud Zerg Empire. After all, the Empyrean demon cult had many branches across the Saints' world, and every single one of them raised many experts. Some branches even possessed their own Hall of Protectors, a group completely composed out of god kings. With all the branches gathered together, the Empyrean demon cult obviously possessed a terrifying number of godhood experts. They completely crushed the Cloud Zerg Empire. As a result, as soon as the armies started fighting, the Cloud Zerg Empire was firmly suppressed. A large amount of casualties appeared in a short moment. At the same time, the Empyrean demon cult possessed an absolute advantage in terms of infinite primes as well. They had over 200 of them. The Cloud Zerg Empire only had 80 to 90 infinite primes. The only advantage they possessed was in the number of chaotic primes. The Empyrean demon cult had many infinite primes but extremely few chaotic primes. Apart from the Grand Elder and the generals, there had no one else. The Grand Elder was just a soul, so he was unable to participate in the battle. Additionally, one of the 5 generals had died, so only 4 remained now. On the other hand, the Cloud Zerg Empire possessed over a dozen chaotic primes. Of course, there were only a handful of chaotic primes that truly belonged to the imperial family. The rest had been roped in, occupying positions as subjects just like Tian Shang. At this moment, a terrifying streak of light shot through the air, heading towards the chaotic primes of the Cloud Zerg Empire. Blade Demon of the 5 generals struck out. He wielded his blood-red blade as he surged with demonic aura, charging out like he was unstoppable. Behind him, Cloud Demon, Wind Demon, and Blood Demon struck out as well. They were not as powerful as Blade Demon, but they were still extremely powerful. They possessed special abilities and great might. All the chaotic primes of the Cloud Zerg Empire set out. They went up to receive the 4 generals of the Empyrean demon cult aggressively. One of them was extremely powerful, a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime. He faced off against Blade Demon. Cloud Demon, Wind Demon, and Blood Demon all encountered their own opponents as well. However, the chaotic primes of the Cloud Zerg Empire possessed an absolute numerical advantage. It was impossible for just the 4 generals of the Empyrean demon cult to handle them all. Chaotic Fusion. At this moment, some infinite primes from the Empyrean demon cult called out together. Several formation scrolls flew out between them, shining with hazy light while giving off a heavy, ancient presence. Around a dozen infinite primes stood around each formation scroll. They stood in special positions as they poured their energy into the scrolls. Immediately, the formation scrolls erupted with dazzling light. Terrifying pulses of energy radiated out. Under the control of the infinite primes, the scrolls produced terrifying beams of light. These beams of light had reached the levels of chaotic primes, and they directly enveloped the subjects of the Cloud Zerg Empire. However, even with that being the case, the Cloud Zerg Empire still possessed an absolute advantage in the battlefield of chaotic primes. However, a blood-red mist suddenly sprayed out from the divine hall of the Empyrean demon cult. Colossal figures seemed to exist within the demonic mist. They were blood-red skeletons that stood at several dozen meters tall. There were a lot of them, ranging into the thousands, and they gave off the presence of death. They marched over neatly, and they would make the ground shake with each step. It's the Empyrean demon cult's army of death. From the imperial palace, Yi Zhan stared right at the blood-red skeletons and became stern. Although this was the first time he had personally seen the army of death, he had heard quite a lot about this powerful army. It was said that they were a truly unkillable army. They were the greatest force of the Empyrean demon cult. They would never be easily mobilized, but they were unstoppable once they were. What a heavy presence of death. Is this the Empyrean demon cult's legendary army of death? Oh no, it's the army of death. This so-called army of death is actually raised from the remains of countless experts. Many primordial realm experts took notice of the special army in the Cloud Zerg Empire, and their faces all changed suddenly. The army of death had finally exposed itself before everyone. Just as its name suggested, it was not composed of cultivators but the remains of cultivators. They had been raised through special methods. They could not think, and they were not alive. They were just humanoid remains that gave off a heavy sense of death. There were not a lot of them, only around 10,000, but these blood-red skeletons pressured all the experts of the Cloud Zerg Empire greatly. This was because it was rumored that many chaotic primes had fallen to the army of death before. This was an infamous army of demons. At this moment, the blood-red skeletons began to merge with one another. Their numbers rapidly decreased. They joined together through a special method. As the skeletons rapidly decreased, the pressure they gave off strengthened. Their bodies swelled as well, becoming larger and larger. In just a few seconds, over 10,000 skeletons had vanished. Chapter 2544. The Spatial Insect Emperor Jian Qin concealed his presence and left the Divine Hall with the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder was wearing a set of armor. The armor did not seem special, but it was a medium-quality god artifact. It could protect the Grand Elder's soul. Energy had turned into terrifying storms that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. Extremely terrifying streaks of light would fall down from time to time with devastating power. The battle outside was extremely intense. People would get wounded or die at every moment, and the ground had already been dyed red, forming rivers of blood. Jian Chen and Cheng Ming landed on the ground silently. They mixed into the messy crowd, using their surroundings to cover them as they made their way towards the depths of the Imperial Palace. All the experts of the Empire were taking part in the battle, so no one noticed them. They passed through the many halls smoothly as they hid themselves purposefully. They arrived in the Forbidden Grounds without alarming anyone. As soon as they arrived there, Jian Chen's heart shivered. He could clearly feel danger with his sharp senses. The danger was fatal. Jian Chen was stern as he stared at the empty entrance to the Forbidden Grounds. He knew the Forbidden Grounds definitely would not be as simple as it seemed on the surface. This Forbidden Ground is where the 4 Grand Primes of the Cloud Zerg Empire cultivate. Anyone who barges in there without their permission will definitely die, as the soul of a spatial insect emperor is sealed in the space here. It guards this place. The Grand Elder stopped. He did not approach the Forbidden Grounds. Instead, he explained to Jian Chen, spatial insects are a type of space beast. They're a rather special species, possessing the natural ability to fuse with space. They truly have the ability to come and go soundlessly, making them very difficult to deal with. As for spatial insect emperors, they're akin to Grand Primes. Even for people who are slightly stronger than a given spatial insect emperor, killing them is almost impossible. However, this spatial insect emperor was very unlucky. It just happened to run into the Rain Abyss, who had grasped the laws of space. In the end, it was slain by the Rain Abyss, and its soul was sealed here. Grand Elder, just how powerful is this Rain Abyss? Jian Chen could not help but become curious about this foreign Rain Abyss when he heard her being mentioned again. He heard about the Rain Abyss the most after coming to the Delight Plane. She was a supreme existence that instilled fear in all the peak experts of the Delight Plane. Cheng Ming was stern. The Rain Abyss is very powerful. The Azure Pen King who hunted you down before isn't even her opponent. Jian Chen's heart shivered when he heard that. He developed a strong sense of dread towards her. Be careful and hide your presence. Don't alarm the beast's soul hidden in the space there. We're about to enter, the Grand Elder called out at this moment. With a flip of his hand, a rainbow heaven-linking bridge appeared, directly extending into the depths of the Forbidden Grounds. The Forbidden Grounds are extremely dangerous. Not only do they have the spatial insect emperor's soul, but the place is also protected by powerful formations. We can only enter through the heaven-linking bridge, said Xing Ming before stepping onto the bridge with Jian Chen. Oh no, someone has intruded the Forbidden Grounds. It's a heaven-linking bridge. A heaven-linking bridge has appeared in the Forbidden Grounds. At this moment, a cry rang out in the distance. A chaotic prime discovered what was happening in the Forbidden Grounds and spoke out to warn everyone. Immediately, some of the chaotic primes wanted to break free and tend to it, but they were entangled by their opponents. We can't let them intrude the Forbidden Grounds. Quick, awaken the spatial insect emperor, Yi Zhan bellowed. With that, determination flooded the face of an armored god king. He did not hide his presence, and he charged towards the Forbidden Grounds aggressively. Go! The Grand Elder frowned and called for Jian Qin. The two of them stepped onto the heaven-linking bridge and rapidly approached the Forbidden Grounds. Just when they passed through the various invisible formations, the armored god king arrived. However, at this moment, something happened. The space near the Forbidden Grounds shattered like a mirror all of a sudden, becoming covered with web-like cracks. The armored god king stood within the cracks. He was carved into pieces. Fortunately, his soul managed to escape. He fled towards the distance with a face full of fear. Unfortunately, before he could travel very far away, the space in front of him was ripped open again. Like a beast's gaping mouth, it devoured the God King's soul whole. The spatial insect emperor. The emperor of the Cloud Zerg Empire became extremely stern. He stared at the space near the Forbidden Grounds as he showed deep fear. At this moment, the space that had been ripped open near the Forbidden Grounds closed up in an instant as if it was under the influence of some mysterious power. However, in the next moment, the space there suddenly froze and everything fell silent. The heaven-linking bridge was affected as well. Its rainbow light froze, clearly seizing up with the space. The soul of the spatial insect emperor has been awakened. It wants to restrain our heaven-linking bridge. If you were at your peak condition, that naturally would not have been a problem, but you're just a soul right now, Qingming sneered, and with a thought, the heaven-linking bridge immediately shrunk, easily retreating out of the frozen space. In the end, the huge bridge shrank back to its original, tiny size and was stowed away by Qingming. Hiss! A sharp hiss rang out from outside the Forbidden Grounds. It could pierce through anything, causing Jian Chen's soul to ache slightly. This was a furious cry from the beast soul. In the next moment, the space outside the Forbidden Grounds shook violently, and the landscape outside immediately turned into a blur. Let's go. The Rain Abyss has personally arranged this place, so the beast soul won't be able to enter. Let's not waste any time. Qingming no longer paid any attention to the spatial insect emperor's soul. He took Jian Qin away without even looking back, entering the depths of the Forbidden Grounds. Qingming seemed to know the layout of the Forbidden Grounds extremely well. He made his way to a beautiful courtyard easily with Jian Qin. This is where the Rain Abyss cultivates. Everything that we want is with the Rain Abyss, Qingming said as he pointed at the courtyard before directly entering it. Grand Elder, aren't there any formations here? Jian Qin could not help but ask when he saw how Qingming did not prepare himself for anything. The Grand Elder chuckled from that. All the protective measures are outside. Since we passed through them, everything else is easy. Don't worry. Where the Rain Abyss cultivates is very safe. There are no dangers hidden at all. Chapter 2545. The Rain Abyss returned standing within the area where the Rain Abyss cultivated in the Forbidden Grounds of the Cloudsurge Empire. Jian Qin sternly studied the place. His caution did not lessen at all. Even though the Grand Elder had sworn that it was very safe here, Jian Qin still did not dare to be careless. After all, this was where a Grand Prime cultivated. Moreover, it was not just a regular Grand Prime, but a figure who stood supreme on the Delight Plane. The place had a very simple arrangement. The only structure in the not particularly large courtyard was a small building that stood at 3 stories high. There was a small garden around the building and a small fish pond. There was nothing else apart from that. Many wondrous plants and flowers were planted in the garden. Every single one was extraordinary and priceless. The fragrance they gave off could focus the minds of people and bring them peace. A few fish thrived in the pond nearby. The fish were not ordinary either. They all pulsed with powerful energy. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed when he noticed the extraordinary fish. He could actually sense energy that was no weaker than God King's from them. Jian Chen could not help but arrive beside the pond and stare at the fish in there. He sighed in amazement. The Rain Abbess was truly the greatest expert of the Delight Plain. Even the fish she kept where she cultivated were so extraordinary. Innate spiritual mud contaminated with Xianhuang Qi. The Rain Abbess really does have the innate orchid of 5 elements raised in innate spiritual mud. At this moment, the Grand Elder's voice rang out from behind the small building. His voice was filled with undisguised joy. Jian Chen immediately left the pool of water and hovered towards the small building. However, unbeknownst to Jian Chen, when he left the pond, one of the fish in there raised its head slightly. A sliver of intelligence appeared in its muddy eyes. At that moment, the fish seemed to possess intelligence. It stared at Jian Chen and the area behind the building cleverly, and its gaze immediately became cold. However, this only lasted for a single second before vanishing. The fish's gaze became clouded once again, and it began swimming around aimlessly in the pond. Jian Chen arrived behind the building and discovered another pond that was only around 10 meters wide. It gave off a faint sense of Xianhuang Qi. A plate-sized flower was planted in the center of the pond. It was extremely special. It only had 5 petals, and the color of each petal was different. They were the colors of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Is this the innate orchid of 5 elements? Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. They began to burn with interest. With the innate orchid of 5 elements, they could fix Xiao Ling's defects. Besides, Xiao Jin could greatly benefit from the flower as well. Jian Chen had not infiltrated the forbidden grounds of the Cloud Zurge Empire for himself. It was completely for Xiao Jin and Xiao Ling, what dense Xianhuang Qi. Jian Chen was secretly amazed. The Xianhuang Qi within the innate orchid of 5 elements was even denser and more pure than the heavenly resources he previously obtained from a Xianhuang microcosm. Moreover, he discovered that the innate orchid of 5 elements was not the only thing with Xianhuang Qi. Even the liquid within the pond and the mud at the bottom of the pool contained Xianhuang Qi. Whether it be the liquid or the mud, they were both rare in the saint's world, making them extremely precious. Innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid are the best materials for rebuilding a body. Moreover, the mud and liquid even come from a Xianhuang microcosm, contaminating them with Xianhuang Qi, which makes them even rarer. There isn't a lot of innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid contaminated with Xianhuang Qi in the saint's world. Master just happens to need them. And I also need innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid to rebuild my body. The Grand Elder was excited. Now that innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid contaminated with Xianhuang Qi was presented before him, he struggled to remain composed despite his mental fortitude. Once I reconstruct my body with the innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid here, I'll be able to break through the bottleneck immediately and reach Grand Prime. Moreover, it'll be far easier for me to break through in the future if my body contains Xianhuang Qi. The Grand Elder was excited. He was eager for the future. Afterwards, he took out a rectangular wooden box and carefully stowed the innate orchid of 5 elements in there. Afterwards, he began collecting the mud and the liquid. When the Empyrean demon cult waged war against the Cloud Zurge Empire, the other peak clans and everlasting empires, along with many experts in ancient existences, all paid close attention. Powerful senses of the soul swept through the sky above the Cloud Zurge Empire. The Rain Abbess isn't present, and the 3 grand primes of the Cloud Zurge Empire aren't present either. Without their support, the formation of Cloud Zurge and Rainflood cannot unleash its full strength. We can easily destroy the formation if we take action and destroy the empire in an instant. The Cloud Zurge Empire has been brimming with ambition. They've never given up on conquering the entire plane, so they pose a great threat to us. We might as well use this opportunity to destroy the empire in a single stroke together. We must not. As long as they have the Rain Abbess, we can't do that. Everyone must understand just how terrifying the rain abyss is. Even if we work together, we're not the rain abyss opponent. That's right. As long as the rain abyss is alive, that is another day we can't touch the Cloudsurge Empire. Otherwise, once the rain abyss decides to look for revenge, we might be able to escape elsewhere, but our clans will be doomed. The ancestors of various organizations discussed from various locations of the Delight Plain. Some people were tempted to attack the Cloudsurge Empire. However, at this moment, a heavy, black cloud suddenly shrouded the entire Delight Plain. Lightning flashed and thunder boomed within it, producing illuminating lightning and deafening rumbles. The terrifying thunder seemed to create a hole in the sky. With that, the Delight Plain that had been cloudless suddenly began to rain. The rain covered an extremely great region. It was not just a city, a state, or a region but all 5 regions. At that moment, if someone looked over from outer space, they would discover that the entire Delight Plain was flooded by a thick layer of clouds. The rain that enveloped the entire plain might not have appeared to be anything special in the eyes of ordinary people. However, the expressions of the peak experts who knew about it changed. As a matter of fact, several ancient and powerful existences had already shown themselves in the air. They stared at the sky sternly. This is the true formation of Cloudsurge and Rainflood. The rain abyss has returned. The rain abyss has returned. The primordial realm experts looked at the sky and cried out. Deep fear and dread filled their eyes. Chapter 2546, Expert of the Way of the Sword. The rain abyss, who could dominate the entire Delight Plain, had returned. This immediately unsettled all the peak experts of the Delight Plain. As for the experts who had wanted to swiftly annihilate the Cloudsurge Empire while the rain abyss was gone, they all gave up on that idea. At that moment, they could not help but celebrate that they had not struck out earlier, or they would have been unable to imagine the consequences. The Empyrean demon cult attacked the Cloudsurge Empire while the rain abyss was gone, but now that she has returned, let's see how the Empyrean demon cult tidies up after themselves. A few primordial realm experts watched on cheerfully. It was as if they wanted to witness destruction. There's an extremely powerful Great Elder behind the Empyrean demon cult. Now that the rain abyss has returned, the mysterious Great Elder should appear. It's said that the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult killed a Grand Prime who had just reached the 4th heavenly layer effortlessly. The rain abyss can do that as well. I wonder who is stronger between the rain abyss and the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. A few primordial realm experts thought eagerly. They wanted to see the Great Elder clash with the rain abyss. They could all tell that the battle between the armies of the Empyrean demon cult and Cloudsurge Empire had reached a high intensity. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, so the grievance had become deep. The Cloudsurge Empire would never just drop the matter. Only the peak experts of the respective sides could come and tidy up the situation. There were even some peak experts who secretly communicated with one another and reached an agreement that they would strike once the rain abyss and the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult were heavily injured. They would kill the rain abyss and remove the Cloudsurge Empire's ultimate pillar of support. With the rain abyss dead, the Cloudsurge Empire would no longer pose a threat in their eyes. They could destroy the Empire easily if they worked together. The rain abyss has returned sooner than I expected. Qing Ming paused as he collected the liquid and mud in the forbidden grounds of the Cloudsurge Empire. He raised his head and looked at the sky concealed by the formation. His gaze deepened. Jian Shen was stern because he had completely lost the ability to detect any changes in the outside world due to the formation. However, he could clearly sense a vast pressure fall from the sky, and it was to the point where he found it suffocating. Grand Elder. Jian Shen looked at Qing Ming. He felt an ill omen with the rain abyss return. He would be of no use against such a person. Moreover, he knew that once the rain abyss returned, the might of the formation of Cloudsurge and Rainflood would be completely unleashed. At that time, not only would the Empyrean demon cult's divine hall be suppressed, but even the heaven-linking bridge would be unable to pass through the formation. Both the heaven-linking bridge and the divine hall could only be used against a formation of cloud surge and rainfall that lacked the support of a Grand Prime. However, the Grand Elder remained composed. As if he was certain about success, he said, "Don't worry. The early return of the Rain Abbess is within my calculations. After all, she is one of the few experts who have comprehended the laws of space. Naturally, she would be extremely fast." Jian Chen's heart jumped. "Grand Elder, will Senior Mo Tianyun be coming?" In Jian Chen's opinion, only Mo Tianyun could hold off the Rain Abbess, as according to his understanding of the Empyrean demon cult, although they had many god kings and infinite primes, they would be far weaker than other peak organizations in terms of chaotic primes. As for grand primes, there was only Mo Tianyun. The Empyrean demon cult was not like the Cloud Surge Empire that recruited many foreign experts. Within the Empyrean demon cult, ranging from the origin realm to chaotic prime, all of them were disciples of the cult. They may have comprehended different laws, but they all practiced demonic arts. If Master could take part, why would we have gone to such great lengths to do this? Master has even more important matters to attend to. "He won't be coming," said Qingming. He looked at the sky deeply before no longer paying any more attention to it. He continued to collect the liquid and mud. "How dare you steal my innate orchid of 5 elements? Empyrean demon cult, you sure are bold." A booming voice rang out in the sky. It was a woman's voice, pleasant and feminine, but it also contained endless coldness and fury. It rang across the 5 regions of the Delight Plain, and the voice alone caused the ground to shake slightly. The Rain Abbess had returned. She stood in the air within the torrential rain. She used the formation of cloud surge and rain flood to envelope the entire Delight Plain, using the formation to seal up all the space there. At that moment, the Delight Plain seemed to become its own, independent world, completely cut off from the outside world. Even all the interplanar teleportation formations were rendered useless. The Rain Abbess clearly did this to trap the Empyrean demon cult on the Delight Plain and prevent them from escaping. The Empyrean demon cult's actions had completely infuriated her. This is a fusion of the laws of space and the formation of cloud surge and rain flood. The Rain Abbess has actually sealed up the entire Delight Plain. At the same time, the expressions of the various ancient existences and ancestors across the Delight Plain changed. Damn it, the Rain Abbess is just far too forceful. Does she really think that the Delight Plain belongs to her? She has actually cast down such a terrifying formation without any warning at all, locking up the entire plane. Many ancient existences were furious as some of them trembled. At this moment, a streak of light suddenly shot over from the depths of outer space. It was extremely bright, illuminating the black space and making all the stars dim in comparison. The streak of light moved unbelievably fast, covering billions of kilometers at every moment. It seemed to have surpassed the shackles of time and space, rushing over with lightning speed. It appeared right outside the Delight Plain despite being in the depths of outer space moments prior. A simple sword hovered within the streak of light. It directly slashed at the formation of cloud surge and rain flood on the Delight Plain with piercing power of the laws of the sword. The strike was terrifying. As it fell, the world descended into darkness. Space shattered and all light disappeared. A cold snort suddenly rang out from within the formation of cloud surge and rain flood. The Rain Abbess charged out. A thick layer of clouds wrapped around her as her presence surged, making the galaxies tremble. A sword long and thin like a willow's branch appeared in the Rain Abbess' hand. She directly stabbed out. The sword fused with the surrounding space, moving like a bolt of lightning. It collided with the simple sword. Boom! The collision was astonishing. It was truly devastating. Large swathes of space collapsed, forming a hole that was several hundred meters across, devouring everything there. The sword that had shot over from the depths of space matched the Rain Abbess. The Rain Abbess has actually encountered an opponent. Who is this? Is it the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult? No, he doesn't have any demonic aura at all. It's purely the laws of the sword. He can't be the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult. What powerful laws of the sword. Just the power in that strike alone would have been enough to kill us. He's so powerful. The peak experts on the Delight Plane said sternly. Their eyes shone brightly as they stared at the battle in outer space. They were shocked. Chapter 2547. Sudden change. Light shone like a resplendent river of stars, illuminating the dark outer space. The expert of the way of the sword struck out once again. Clad with light, sword intent surged from his body. Every time he struck out, he would shatter space. He was extremely powerful. On the other side, the Rain Abbess was wrapped in the power of clouds and rain as lightning danced in her surroundings. With the laws of space revolving around her, she struck out mightily with her thin sword, clashing with the expert of the way of the sword. Their battle was extremely intense. Every strike and move was devastating. Even the stars shook as if they were trembling in fear. In a mere 5 seconds, the two of them had clashed hundreds of times. They went from close to the Delight Plane to the depths of outer space. The dark, cold space collapsed from their battles, and spatial cracks were strewn everywhere. Huge, black holes appeared one after another. All the ancient and powerful existences extended the senses of their souls from the Delight Plane. They paid close attention to this battle as the two experts traveled further and further into outer space. All of these people were supreme figures who stood at the peak of a plane. They were grand primes, and the senses of their souls were extremely powerful. They could easily envelope an entire plane, so they were able to follow the battle. The Rain Abbess has actually encountered an opponent. This expert is at the 5th heavenly layer at the very least. He might even be at the peak of the 5th heavenly layer since he is able to match up to the Rain Abbess. The Rain Abbess is far more powerful than we previously imagined. Even such a terrifying expert of the way of the sword isn't able to keep her at bay. The Empyrean demon cult cannot be underestimated. Apart from their legendary great elder, there's actually such a great expert of the way of the sword as well. The Grand Elder, Qingming, continued to collect the innate spiritual liquid and the innate spiritual mud at an unhurried pace within the forbidden grounds of the Cloud Surge Empire. Both of these items were naturally created. They were extremely precious and needed to be stored carefully. As a result, it was impossible for the Grand Elder to move quickly in the first place. The liquid and mud within the tiny pond gradually decreased. On the other hand, Jianchen discovered that he had nothing to do. He even began to doubt why the Grand Elder had taken him into the forbidden grounds, as he had realized that he was of no help here at all. If he were outside, he could collect the corpses that fell in battle at the very least. It would provide the immortal devouring orchid with nourishment. However, in the forbidden grounds, there was truly nothing that he could do. Don't worry. If nothing unexpected happens, we have 3 days. The Grand Elder was very composed. Everything was well planned as if it were all under his control. In outer space, the Rain Abbess also sensed the innate spiritual liquid and innate spiritual mud decrease. She could not help but become worried. They had been taken from a Xianhuang microcosm, so they were contaminated with Xianhuang qi, making them extremely precious. Every portion she lost would be a huge loss. Unfortunately, she was busy with a powerful opponent. She could not break free from the battle, so she was in no state to worry about what was happening on the Delight Plane. Solitary Sword Ancestor, if you insist on entangling with me, I will treat you as my greatest enemy. You will definitely regret this, the Rain Abbess said. Her icy cold voice was furious. I'm only doing this because of someone's request. I need to keep you busy for 3 days. After those 3 days, I'll leave by myself. An old voice rang out from the resplendent light. The expert of the way of the sword was the Solitary Sword Ancestor. Solitary Sword Ancestor. The Rain Abbess called out furiously. As she said that, violent power of space surged out from the surrounding, collapsing space and forming a huge spatial vortex that enveloped the Solitary Sword Ancestor. At the same time, the power of the laws of space permeated the region, constantly affecting the space near the Solitary Sword Ancestor in an attempt to get in his way. The solitary sword ancestor dealt with this with composure. He slashed out with his sword. The light was extremely terrifying, nullifying all of the Rain Abyss attacks. For a moment, the Rain Abyss and the solitary sword ancestor were locked in a stalemate. Their battle prowess matched each other's, so neither party could do anything to their opponent. However, at this moment, an azure figure suddenly shot out from the collapsed space. It had appeared there silently, without raising any attention. It arrived behind the solitary sword ancestor in a flash. It dealt a swift attack without any hesitation at all. The solitary sword ancestor was facing the Rain Abyss with his full strength, so he was in no state to divert his attention. Coupled with the interference from the Rain Abyss power of space, his senses were obscured. As a result, he was struck by the azure light after being caught off guard. Bang! Immediately, there was a thud, and the solitary sword ancestor was blasted away. The light around him collapsed, revealing his appearance. His old face was rather pale, and there was a plate-sized hole in his chest. Blood dyed his clothes red. Azure Peking, I never thought it would be you. Even though he was heavily injured, the solitary sword ancestor remained composed. However, his gaze was piercing. His voice was slightly sternly. This king owes the Rain Abyss a favor. I've come to return the favor this time. The azure light faded and revealed the Azure Peking. He stared at the solitary sword ancestor calmly. He was at ease. In the next moment, the Azure Peking struck out again. He charged towards the solitary sword ancestor as a streak of azure light with his unmatched speed, fighting alongside the Rain Abyss. The solitary sword ancestor was no weaker than either of them. As a matter of fact, he was much more powerful than the Azure Peking. However, now that he faced the two of them simultaneously, he immediately lost the upper hand and was forced back. Wind. Clouds. Thunder. Rain. The Rain Abyss called out. She formed a seal with her hands, and an inscription of primitive simplicity condensed there. The bearing of ways circulated within it, seemingly resonating with the ways of the world. In the end, it struck the solitary sword ancestor's sword. Immediately, the solitary sword ancestor's sword produced a clear thrum as it constantly trembled. The light dimmed, having been dispersed, and the solitary sword ancestor was knocked back. I can't last 3 days with the Azure Peking here now. I am powerless. Farewell. The solitary sword ancestor's face was cold. He stowed his sword away and murmured sternly. In the next moment, he vanished into the depths of space as a streak of light. At the same time, Qingming paused in his collection of mud and fluid. The solitary sword ancestor's message directly reached his ears, immediately making him stern. Something has happened. We can't stay here. We need to go. Qingming stopped without any hesitation and called for Jian Chen, directly taking out the heaven-linking bridge to open a path to the outside. Chapter 2548, taking the beast soul. Jian Chen's heart sank as well. He did not know what had happened outside, but Qingming suddenly becoming so frantic allowed him to realize that the situation outside had not taken a turn for the better. Very soon, Jian Chen stepped onto the colorful heaven-link bridge behind Qingming. The heaven-linking bridge was extraordinary. The power of ways circulated within it, allowing it to extend through the formations around the forbidden grounds. It was silent and did not alarm the insect emperor's soul lurking outside. Hold on. As soon as Jian Chen stepped onto the heaven-linking bridge, he was stopped by Qingming. The two of them remained within the forbidden grounds. They had yet to pass through the formations. Qingming stared at the space outside the forbidden grounds with shining eyes. He looked around as if he was searching for the lurking spatial insect emperor. He was extremely stern. Grand Elder, what is the matter? Jian Chen asked. He was stern as well, unwilling to drop his guard at all. He had even readied himself for battle. The Grand Elder did not reply. He stared at the space before him as the light in his eyes flickered. He murmured to himself, I hope there's still time. Afterwards, the Grand Elder suddenly looked at Jian Chen. His eyes shone as he said sternly, Master gave you a mask in the past. Wear the mask now. Jian Chen was in doubt, but he did not ask about it. He immediately took out the mask and put it on. Jian Chen, listen carefully. What you are going to do next might be very dangerous, but it's also a great fortuitous encounter for you. The Grand Elder was stern as he continued, taking you into the forbidden grounds of the Cloud Zerg Empire was not actually my idea, but the Great Elder's request. Even if you didn't come to the Delight Plane this time, we would send people to contact you on the Cloud Plane when our Empyrean demon cult launched our attack on the Cloud Zerg Empire. The real reason for bringing you here is actually the soul of the Spatial Insect Emperor outside. Spatial insects are natural beasts of space. From the moment they're born, their species knows how to use the laws of space, and spatial insect emperors can use the laws of space to an extremely great level. Since you've comprehended the laws of space, the soul of a spatial insect emperor will be a great fortune to you. I've brought you along this time for you to obtain the soul of the spatial insect emperor, for the spatial insect emperor to enter your soul so that you can refine it and absorb its comprehension of the laws of space. The Grand Elder's words were astonishing. In just a few sentences, Jian Chen was left stunned. Grand Elder, what did you just say? You want me to refine the spatial insect emperor's soul? Jian Chen's expression immediately changed. He said with a sliver of disbelief, Grand Elder, even though the spatial insect emperor has been reduced to a soul, it still possesses great strength, and it can fight back. Not to mention that its usage of the laws of space near perfection. Even though it's just a soul now, not even regular Grand Primes can deal with it, let alone the fact that I have to let it into my soul. I probably can't do anything to it. Jian Chen felt no confidence about this. An individual's soul was already extremely fragile. If he used his soul alone, he would probably fail to deal with people a whole cultivation realm lower than him, yet he had to face a terrifying beast soul that he could not defeat with even his full strength. He had witnessed the spatial beast emperor kill the god king of the Cloud Zerg Empire. The beast soul could definitely kill infinite primes easily. Even chaotic primes would suffer in its hands. Don't worry. Since Master wants you to do this, he naturally believes you have the ability to refine the beast soul. Even if you can't refine it, you won't be in danger. At the very least, the spatial beast emperor won't be able to destroy your soul, as Master did say that your soul was rather special in the past. Jian Chen, fortune comes with risk. The greater the risk, the greater the fortune. What do you think? If you don't want to take the risk, I'll take you away right now. Cheng Ming stared at Jian Chen sternly. My soul is special? Jian Chen thought of his soul instead. His soul was indeed rather different. Let alone the fact that part of it was missing, but it had even fused with a strand of true chaotic force. It had changed a long time ago, making it different to the souls of regular cultivators. All right. I'll do it. Grand Elder, tell me what I should do. In the end, Jian Chen made up his mind and agreed. If he could refine the soul of the spatial beast emperor and absorb its comprehension of the laws of space, it would really be a great fortune to him. Of course, this was extremely dangerous as well. After all, a battlefield set in the soul could lead to certain doom from the slightest carelessness. Cheng Ming was glad. If you want to deal with the spatial insect emperor, we have to stay in the formation, as the Rain Abyss has bound the spatial insect emperor, restricting its movements. The area within the formation just happens to be a place where it cannot set foot in. The spatial insect emperor can't attack us here. Afterwards, Cheng Ming took out a jade bottle and sprinkled a white powder onto Jian Chen. This is a powder refined from the corpse of a spatial insect. If you have it on you, the spatial beast emperor will mistake you for one of its clansmen. Space beasts never have any particularly great intelligence, not to mention that it's only a soul now. Basically all of its intelligence has been refined away by the Rain Abyss. The remaining instincts aren't enough to distinguish who you are. Use Master's Mask to cover your presence carefully so that you only possess the presence of a spatial insect. Space beasts are extremely sensitive to presences. Many impressive concealing techniques aren't able to hide from their senses, but Master's Mask can. Once the soul of the spatial beast emperor senses the presence of its own clansmen, its instincts will take over, and it will immediately enter your body to take over you. Your battle against the beast soul will hence begin. However, you don't need to worry, I've already prepared some things. You only need to keep the spatial insect emperor busy for a while. Once we leave here, I can assist you in dealing within the beast soul. Chengming's voice was rather rushed. He knew that time was extremely tight, so he did not give any time for Jian Chen to ask questions. He took out a pill from his space ring and shoved it into Jian Chen's mouth in a hurry and said, "This is a soul-numbing pill. It's for numbing the soul. However, Master said that your soul is rather special, so the soul-numbing pill won't have any particularly great effects. Hold it in your mouth. Once the beast soul enters your head, crush the pill immediately." Chapter 2549, Battling the Insect Emperor. Time was extremely tight. After explaining the matters that Jian Chen should watch out for, Chengming grabbed him by the shoulder. Jian Chen could not feel any particular difference from how Chengming's soul felt compared to a physical body. He was directly lifted up by Chengming. Of course, Chengming only managed to do that since Jian Chen did not resist. Chengming held Jian Chen by the shoulder and arrived at the center of the heaven-linking bridge with a flash. His finger swept across the sky gently. Immediately, a crack silently appeared within the rainbow light from the bridge. Chengming stared at the empty space within the crack before taking out another jade bottle. He poured out a droplet of milky white fluid. As soon as the droplet of fluid appeared, a heavy scent of blood permeated the surroundings. This white liquid was actually the blood of spatial insects. Moreover, from the residual energy within the blood, it was evident that it came from a spatial insect that had reached the primordial realm. The presence of the blood wafted out through the crack in the heaven-linking bridge, spreading outside. At the next moment, the space outside the formation suddenly pulsed. It felt like it had become a body of water, where the slightest breeze would make it ripple. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as he stared straight outside. Right after, he saw a white, insect-like figure appear and disappear with a flash. The figure was not large, only around a meter in length. It was illusionary, as if it had fused with space. Only a rough outline could be seen, obscuring its complete appearance. The spatial insect emperor. Jian Chen shivered inside. He was completely certain that the figure he just saw was the spatial insect emperor. The insect emperor was a terrifying creature on par with grand primes. Even though it no longer possessed a body, it was still terrifying. In the next moment, the Grand Elder flicked away the droplet of blood. The white blood possessed the presence of spatial insects. It shot through the crack in the heaven-linking bridge like an arrow, flying outside. However, at the same time, the space outside the heaven-linking bridge suddenly seized up. At that moment, the space there froze and everything fell silent. It was as if time had stopped. The droplet of blood that flew out had been locked up outside the light around the heaven-linking bridge. Afterwards, a white, insect-shaped figure that had seemingly fused with space swam around the droplet of blood like a fish. Its figure faded and consolidated from time to time, making it very difficult to clearly see. The Grand Elder retreated in a hurry, entering the forbidden grounds once again. At this moment, the droplet of blood suddenly vanished. The spatial insect emperor did not seem to devour the droplet of blood. It had just vanished without a trace all of a sudden. In the next moment, the soul of the spatial beast emperor flew through the light around the heaven-linking bridge along the blood's trajectory, appearing on it. Its figure was still illusionary, having completely fused with space. As a result, it was difficult to see its true appearance. As a matter of fact, it was impossible to tell its head from its tail. A chill ran down Jian Chen's spine. He was under the impression that the beast's soul seemed to have locked onto him. Even though he could not see the eyes of the spatial insect emperor, that was simply what he felt. Jian Chen remained calm, carefully concealing his presence. He knew that he was covered in a layer of powder from the corpse of a spatial insect, which was why he possessed a spatial insect's presence. As a result, the spatial insect emperor had mistaken him for one of its clansmen and would not attack him. However, if he let his presence as a human cultivator leak out, he could be mercilessly slain by the spatial beast emperor. As a space beast, the spatial insect emperor had never possessed any great intelligence. Coupled with its current state, its intelligence was further compromised, so it basically acted out of instincts now. It was unable to correctly identify what Jianchen actually was. Suddenly, the soul of the spatial beast emperor turned into a blur and charged towards Jianchen. It moved just too quickly, surpassing the restrictions of space. It appeared before Jianchen in an instant and wormed into Jianchen's head with pressure that weighed down on the soul. Only when Jianchen felt a splitting pain from his head did he realize that the soul of the spatial insect emperor had already entered him. He became extremely stern. His head would be a battlefield soon, and he would engage in a battle of life or death with the spatial insect emperor. The slightest carelessness would take his life. Without any hesitation, he immediately crushed the soul-numbing pill in his mouth. The soul-numbing pill shattered, and a medicinal effect that could numb the soul expanded, directly entering Jianchen's soul. By now, Jianchen had already closed his eyes. The muscles on his face twitched unnaturally as he gradually paled. It would take some time for the effects of the soul-numbing pill to completely kick in. However, his soul was already under the vicious attacks of the spatial insect emperor, so he had to endure intense agony. The soul of the spatial beast emperor appeared in Jianchen's sea of consciousness as a white bug. Following its natural instincts, it tried to devour Jianchen's soul. Its appearance was nothing special. It only seemed like a silkworm that had been enlarged countless times, plump and around a meter long. Jianchen did not just sit and wait. He also appeared in his sea of consciousness, using the laws of the sword and the power of his soul to engage in a battle against the soul of the spatial insect emperor. Chapter 2550. In danger, however, the spatial insect emperor did not give up. Not only did it persist, but excitement and desire even appeared in its eyes that had almost lost all of its light. It had tasted a mysterious power that made it drool from the portion it had swallowed earlier. The mysterious power tempted it so much that it could no longer care about anything else. Regardless of the price, it had to obtain that power. The spatial insect emperor opened its mouth and sucked again. It was trying to devour Jianchen's soul once more. It wanted to absorb the mysterious power that made its blood surge from Jianchen's soul. Its instincts told it that if it could absorb that mysterious power, it would gain unimaginable benefits. However, no matter how it tried to absorb the mysterious power in Jianchen's soul, it failed. Instead, the mysterious power caused it agony, and its illusionary figure squirmed unnaturally as a result. It was like it was in pain. In the end, the spatial insect emperor opened its little mouth and spat out the portion of Jianchen's soul again. Afterwards, the spatial insect emperor began to devour and spit up the portion of Jianchen's soul endlessly. Jianchen gradually stopped his attacks towards the spatial insect emperor as well. His battle prowess was extremely limited in his sea of consciousness. His most powerful attacks would depend on his soul. However, his soul was only in infinite primes, while the spatial insect emperor was a grand prime. The difference was just too great, so it was like comparing an ant to an elephant. He felt like he was just scratching the spatial beast emperor's itches. If the spatial beast emperor was outside, he might have been able to pose a certain level of threat towards it through certain methods, but they were completely useless in his sea of consciousness. As a result, there was nothing he could do about the spatial insect emperor. Fortunately, the spatial insect emperor has lost its intelligence and only acts on its instincts, or the consequences will really be unimaginable. Jianchen secretly celebrated as he looked at the spatial insect emperor that constantly devoured and regurgitated the portion of his soul. He was well aware that if the intelligence of the spatial insect emperor remained, it would have many methods it could use against him. He would never be its opponent in a battle of souls. At this moment, the effects of the soul-numbing pill appeared. Jianchen immediately felt his soul blur. Vaguely, his consciousness seemed to fall under some influence, becoming rather unclear. He felt sleepy. However, Jian Chen's soul had fused with a strand of true chaotic force, so it had changed a long time ago. As a result, the pill had limited effects on him. It was not enough to knock him out. However, the soul of the spatial insect emperor did not have it that easy. It was indeed much more powerful than Jian Chen's soul, but it was not as resistant to the soul-numbing pill as him. Immediately, the spatial insect emperor became weaker and weaker. Sleepiness gradually appeared in its eyes. They dropped as it gradually fell asleep. The Grand Elder paid close attention to Jian Chen's reactions on the heaven-linking bridge outside. After seeing that Jian Chen was fine, he let out a sigh. He arrived beside Jian Chen in a flash and grabbed his shoulder, taking him outside. At the same time, the effects of the soul-numbing pill increased on the spatial insect emperor. Its dull eyes slowly closed. However, at this moment, its eyes that had just shut suddenly snapped open. Conflict appeared in them, and some light appeared in its eyes as the conflict went on. It was as if the spatial insect emperor had recovered some intelligence at that moment. Afterwards, it opened its little mouth and let out a soundless hiss. Jian Chen's body immediately trembled violently. His complexion paled as blood flowed from his eyes. It was a frightening sight. The hiss from the spatial insect emperor was damaging. It upheaved Jian Chen's entire sea of consciousness, making his soul tremble uncontrollably. A small portion of his soul collapsed, making Jian Chen feel like his head was splitting open. Outside, the Grand Elder seemed to sense something. His expression suddenly changed, and he immediately let go of Jian Chen, traveling far from him in a flash. In the next moment, the space around Jian Chen silently cracked. Pitch-black crack after pitch-black crack appeared around him like webs. Oh no! Qing Ming's face suddenly changed. The armor he was wearing was a medium-quality god artifact, and at that moment, it erupted with a powerful pulse of energy. Its complete defenses had been unleashed, forming a barrier around Qing Ming. Qing Ming arrived before Jian Chen in a flash, entering the cracked space around him. He used the toughness of the god artifact to uphold the space there, wanting to drag Jian Chen out and take him away forcefully. However, at this moment, the space in the surroundings seized up. Not only was Jian Chen frozen there, but even Qing Ming was trapped, frozen in the posture of his hand extending. However, in the next moment, turbulent energy erupted from Qing Ming's armor, forcefully pushing back the frozen space and allowing him to back up immediately, moving out of the forbidden grounds. He was only a soul now. Using the power of the armor, he could only protect himself. He could not take Jian Chen away from the region of space there. Grand Elder, we need to go. A figure silently appeared before the Grand Elder. He surged with demonic aura as he radiated with a powerful blade intent. It was Blade Demon out of the 5 generals. At that moment, Blade Demon stared at the sky sternly with his eyes shrouded by demonic aura. Blade Demon, take Jian Chen out, Qing Ming said sternly. Blade Demon nodded. Just when he was about to act, a huge bolt of lightning struck the divine hall of the Empyrean demon cult with a blinding flash. It erupted with a huge boom, causing the high-quality god artifact to dim and fall out of the sky. At the same time, a hand completely condensed from energy appeared. It descended in a devastating manner, heading directly towards the armies of the Empyrean demon cult. It enveloped all 4 generals of the Empyrean demon cult. The Rain Abyss had struck out personally. The palm strike was devastating and shocking. Blade Demon's expression changed just when he was about to save Jian Chen. Faced with the situation before him, he could no longer bother with Jian Chen. He vanished with the Grand Elder, appearing before the Divine Hall in a flash. At the same time, the armies of the Empyrean demon cult retreated. They returned to the Divine Hall like a black flood. The 3 huge, blood-red skeletons fused together, becoming a giant skeleton. It gave off an endless presence of death, blocking the palm strike that fell from the sky. Chapter 2551, a narrow escape. The blood-red skeleton formed by the army of death stood there like a giant. Blood-red mist permeated its surroundings as it emitted a heavy presence of death that seemed to drain the life of everything. At that moment, its huge skull was raised as it stared at the sky with its hollow eyes. Afterwards, it leapt up to receive the huge palm strike that fell from the sky. Bang! The huge skeleton erupted with all of its power, colliding with the hand of energy. There was an immediate, deep rumble, as if the sky had exploded. Region after region of space collapsed as terrifying storms of energy wreaked havoc there, making the space there ripple. From that alone, the skeleton collapsed. Its huge body that stood thousands of meters tall directly collapsed in the air from the palm strike. It was reduced back into a ball of countless smaller skeletons, falling from the sky. Moreover, during this process, a third of the skeletons directly disintegrated in the air. The Empyrean demon cult's army of death was renowned for its power in the saints' world. It had never suffered a defeat since its appearance. It did not even suffer any casualties. This was because they were never alive. They were truly undying objects. They felt no pain, no fear, and they were extremely tough. If they encountered powerful opponents, they could fuse together and stack their battle prowess. As a result, they could even kill chaotic primes. But now, a third of the infamous army of death had been lost after taking a single palm strike from the Rain Abyss. The loss was extremely heavy. After a slight pause, the Rain Abyss hand continued to fall. Wherever it passed, space collapsed, and a destructive power enveloped everyone from the Empyrean demon cult. It was an extremely shocking sight. Boom! In the end, the huge hand struck the Empyrean demon cult's divine hall, and the collision resulted in a deafening boom. The huge divine hall was beaten into the ground, and the members of the cult who had yet to enter the divine hall all died. Their bodies disintegrated into nothingness under the terrifying power. In that short moment, over 10,000 cult members died to the Rain Abyss. There were many god kings among them. The people of the Cloud Zerg Empire cheered with the sudden change to the situation. Many experts praised the Rain Abyss. They were extremely excited. The Rain Abyss return had turned the situation around. In just a single palm strike, she made the aggressive Empyrean demon cult retreat. Everyone witnessed the unstoppable might of the Rain Abyss. A figure silently appeared within the formation of Cloud Zerg and Rain Flood in the sky. The power of clouds and rain surged around her, along with the laws of the world. It obscured her figure. As she appeared, the formation of Cloud Zerg and rainfall that protected the imperial city truly unleashed the peak of its power. Not only did it seal up the entire space there, but even the space where the divine hall stood became restrained by a tremendous power. Immediately, the divine hall was immobilized. Even the terrifying power that erupted earlier was unable to break free from the invisible restraints. Greetings to the Abyss. The Emperor of the Cloud Zerg Empire, Yizhan, stared at the figure with respect as he dropped to his knees. All the infinite primes and chaotic primes around him showed respect as well. They either dropped to their knees or bowed. Empyrean demon cult. A cold voice rang out from the sky. It contained heavy killing intent. The Rain Abyss had spoken. The bearing of ways circulated around her as she radiated with a terrifying presence. With a wave of her hand, countless colossal bolts of lightning appeared from the formation, hurtling towards the cult's divine hall in a devastating fashion. As if the Empyrean demon cult's divine hall had become a sitting duck, it was immobilized and kept there by the Rain Abyss, so it was forced to endure the endless attacks of lightning. The lightning came from the formation of Cloud Zerg and Rain Flood. With the support of the Rain Abyss, they had become extremely terrifying. Even though the Divine Hall was a high-quality god artifact, it constantly trembled from the attacks. The interior of the Divine Hall swayed. Many members of the cult struggled to keep a stable footing, teetering and tottering or even directly falling over. Grand Elder, where's Jian Chen? Why hasn't Jian Chen returned with you? Su Ran asked Qingming. She was currently on the highest floor of the Divine Hall. Her expression was very ugly. The Grand Elder's expression was extremely ugly as well. He said sternly, "Something unexpected happened. I failed to bring back Jian Chen." "What?" Su Ran's expression changed. She immediately turned around to leave the divine hall. "You can't go out. The Rain Abbess of the Cloud Surge Empire is outside. Once you leave the divine hall, you will struggle to even keep your own life intact, let alone save Jian Chen." Qingming stopped Su Ran. After a moment of thought, he comforted her, "But you don't need to worry. Master treats Jian Chen with great importance. Now that he's in danger, Master will definitely save Jian Chen." Boom! At this moment, a great rumble rang out, and the divine hall shook even more violently. The attacks from the formation of Cloud Surge and Rain Flood became even more intense. The power of the divine hall was rapidly depleting. "Grand Elder, we need to go." Blade Demon, Blood Demon, Cloud Demon, and Rain Demon appeared around the Grand Elder. They were still shrouded by demonic aura, but they were stern. Qingming nodded solemnly. Afterwards, he flipped his hand, and a hand-sized sword immediately appeared. He muttered, "The space-shattering sword specializes in destroying seals on space. It can only be used once. Originally, I thought there would be no need for us to use this at all, but I never thought we would still need it in the end." Afterwards, the space-shattering sword flew out and appeared outside the divine hall. A space-shattering sword. Outside, the Rain Abbess also noticed the sword. Her face immediately sank, and she called out. She immediately tried to trap the sword. However, it was already too late. As soon as the space-shattering sword appeared outside the divine hall, it exploded loudly. A mysterious power sealed in the space there immediately leaked out, shattering the laws of space in the region. The space that kept the divine hall trapped shook violently. The restraints eased up, and the divine hall broke free. In the end, it shot into a spatial crack created by the space-shattering sword and vanished. The Rain Abbess snorted coldly. She immediately vanished, charging into the crack in close pursuit. Clearly, she did not plan on letting the Empyrean demon cult go. But very soon, the Rain Abbess returned. However, she was utterly furious, just like a volcano that was about to erupt. She gave off an extremely terrifying presence, scaring the experts of the Cloud Surge Empire into silence. "You sure run fast. Empyrean demon cult, you've taken by innate orchid of 5 elements and most of my innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid. I will never simply forget about this," the Rain Abbess said through gritted teeth. Afterwards, she vanished and reappeared in the forbidden grounds behind the imperial palace. The space there remained frozen. Nothing could move. The effects of the space-shattering sword failed to reach here. However, the heaven-linking bridge was gone now, having been taken away by the Grand Elder. Jian Chen remained frozen mid-air in the same posture as before. The Rain Abbess stood outside the forbidden grounds and looked at Jian Chen coldly. The iciness was pressing. Chapter 2552, Facing the Abyss. You sure are bold to eye the soul of the spatial insect emperor. The Rain Abbess stood outside the forbidden grounds as the power of clouds and rain revolved around her, flickering with lightning. She reached out with her hand, and Jian Chen immediately flew out from the frozen space and entered her hands. "Yi Zhan." The Rain Abbess called out gently. Her cold voice directly rang out in the head of the Emperor of the Cloud Surge Empire. In dragon robes, Yi Zhan quickly appeared before the Rain Abbess. He, the Emperor, who normally held his head up high, did not even dare to raise his head now. He was even afraid of breathing too loudly. With his knees on the ground, he said politely, "Greetings to the Abbess." "I'll leave this person to you," the Rain Abbess said. She did not even glance at Yi Zhan, directly tossing Jian Chen to him. Currently, Jian Chen's eyes were closed, and blood oozed out from the corner of his eyes. His soul was already injured, and all of his concentration was focused on his sea of consciousness. He faced the spatial insect emperor, so he was in no state to pay any attention to the outside world. Originally, the spatial insect emperor should have fallen into a slumber from the soul-numbing pill. However, at a critical moment, it actually recovered some of its intelligence, increasing its resistance to the pill. It did not fall unconscious immediately, which caused great trouble for Jian Chen. In the end, when the spatial insect emperor completely fell quiet from the effects of the pill, the power of Jian Chen's soul had been overexhausted as well, causing him to fall unconscious. The soul of the spatial insect emperor is just too powerful. In a short amount of time, it drained the power of my soul completely. That was Jian Chen's last thought. With the power of his soul depleted and his soul injured, his resistance to the soul-numbing pill had dropped to a bare minimum as well. In the end, he was unable to stop himself from falling unconscious, and he completely lost contact with the outside world. He did not even know that he had fallen into the hands of the rain abyss. The emperor of the Cloud Surge Empire looked at Jian Chen, and a sliver of cold killing intent flickered through his eyes. The sudden attack from the Empyrean demon cult had made the empire suffer extremely great losses. They had lost many elites and even some chaotic primes. Naturally, he hated the Empyrean demon cult to the core, so he was filled with killing intent. Abbess, please do not worry. I will definitely deal with this person appropriately. We have many ways to treat prisoners of war, Yi Zhan said coldly. His voice was filled with a repressed coldness. He did not dare to show it before the rain abyss. Yi Zhan looked at Jian Chen. After staring at him for a while, he easily saw that Jian Chen was disguised by a mask. He immediately removed the mask. As soon as the mask was removed, Jian Chen's presence changed. He regained his original presence. Yi Zhan was surprised. He no longer paid any attention to Jian Chen. Instead, he studied the mask in his hand. As the ruler of an empire, Yi Zhan's insight was extraordinary. He could tell that the mask was extraordinary with a single glance. It was something extremely precious. Afterwards, he passed the mask to the rain abbess politely and said, "Abbess, this mask is rather special. Please see." The mask flew into the rain abbess' hands by itself. After studying the mask carefully, she said, "This mask is indeed extraordinary. It can conceal the presence of anyone who wears it. Even I can't see through it." The rain abbess turned around slightly and glanced at the unconscious Jian Chen casually with her cold eyes hidden within the mist and clouds. She had performed this glance casually, but it was not because she was interested in Jian Chen. In reality, with Jian Chen's level of cultivation, he was no different from an ant in the eyes of an expert like the rain abbess. If it were not for that one feature that stood out, the mask, he would not have been able to attract her attention. However, when the rain abbess saw Jian Chen's face, her cold eyes suddenly narrowed. "Why would it be you?" the rain abbess murmured to herself. It was very gentle but filled with surprise. Yi Zhan was confused. He only dared to stare at Jian Chen and study him. He did not have the courage to look up. He was filled with doubt. The rain abbess' words made Yi Zhan think of many things. Did the rain abbess know this person? However, even though he was filled with suspicion, Yi Zhan did not dare to ask anything. "You are dismissed," said the rain abbess. Her voice had returned to its previous coldness. Afterwards, she lifted up Jian Chen with one hand and carried him into the forbidden grounds. The black divine hall of the Empyrean demon cult hovered quietly in an unknown region of space within the saint's world. On the highest floor of the divine hall, the Grand Elder, Qingming, stood alone within a secret room. An extremely complicated and profound formation was engraved on the ground. Qingming tossed in a few supreme-grade divine crystals and activated the formation. Immediately, the formation shone with a dazzling glow before condensing into a screen of light in the end. A blurry figure appeared within it, and it gradually grew clearer. He was the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult, Mo Tianyun. "Greetings, Master." Qingming kneeled on the floor and lowered his head solemnly. He was extremely polite. Qingming, are all the materials prepared? Mo Tianyan's voice rang out from within the screen of light. He was calm. Master, all the materials have been collected. Even a sufficient amount of innate spiritual mud and liquid has been collected from the Cloud Zurge Empire, said Qingming. Good. Mo Tianyun was happy. There was even a vague sliver of eagerness and excitement. He said, Qingming, go reconstruct your body first. Contact me after that, and I'll give you my location. Personally deliver the materials I need. Yes, Master. After a moment of hesitation, Qingming continued, but Master, a slight accident happened when we attacked the Cloud Zurge Empire, which caused Jian Chen to be trapped there. He faces constant danger now. Mo Tianyun frowned when he heard that. After a moment of thought, he said slowly, Fuyu has returned to the Cloud Zurge Empire, right? The Rain Abbess has returned, replied Qingming. Since Fuyu has returned, there's no need to worry about Jian Chen's safety. Jian Chen has Fan Yun behind him. For the sake of Fan Yun, Fuyu won't touch Jian Chen. TL note, something I must add, Fuyu and Fan Yun seem to be names here, but if translated literally, they correspond to Rain Flood and Cloud Surge. Do you see the connection with the formation and empire? Also, when the two phrases are combined, Fan Yun Fuyu or Cloud Surge Rain Flood, it actually forms an idiom for unpredictability in Chinese. That's clearly not describing anything in the novel, which was why I avoided it as well, but it does form a kind of match that's supposed to go together. You might infer certain things from it, but I'll leave that up to you. Jian Chen slowly awakened within the forbidden grounds of the imperial palace of the Cloud Zurge Empire. As soon as he woke up, he felt a sharp pain from his soul, immediately making him pale. This pain came from his soul. Jian Chen checked his space ring and discovered that it was still on his finger. As a result, he immediately took out a few pills and heavenly resources that could heal the soul to relieve the pain slightly. However, this was only pain relief. Injuries to the soul were the most difficult to deal with. If he wanted to make a full recovery, it would be far more difficult than recovering from injuries to the body. Fortunately, the spatial insect emperor is still slumbering. After checking his sea of consciousness again, Jian Chen was temporarily relieved. However, he also knew that the spatial insect emperor would wake up soon. He needed to find a way to refine it before it woke up, or there would be dire consequences once it started acting up. Originally, he would have had the assistance of the Grand Elder of the Empyrean demon cult to refine the beast's soul, but he was on his own now. Jian Chen struggled to sit up. He began to observe his surroundings. Gradually, his expression became strange. In the end, his face became extremely ugly. Everything in the surroundings seemed so familiar. Was this not where the Rain Abbess cultivated? Jian Chen's heart completely sank when he realized that he had returned to where the Rain Abbess cultivated after waking up. Do you know how rare, how precious that innate orchid of 5 elements is? At this moment, a woman's voice rang out. Chapter 2553, Intriguing Treatment. Without even thinking, Jian Chen guessed the woman's identity. He secretly sighed. Now that he had ended up in the hands of the Rain Abbess, he felt completely helpless. Ready for anything, he said, I obviously know a little. Not only is the innate orchid of 5 elements something that only occurs naturally, but it also possesses Xianhuang Qi. Those 2 features alone are enough for the innate orchid of 5 elements to be a priceless treasure. Since you know the value of the innate orchid of 5 elements, is it on you? The Rain Abbess asked in an extremely cold voice. With the Abbess' strength and insight, you've probably realized that the flower isn't on me a long time ago. Jian Chen felt that her question was strange. He felt like this question was completely unneeded. Innate orchids of 5 elements bearing Xianhuang Qi are so rare that there are probably only 3 in the entire Saints world. It would have been fine if you came for it, but you didn't take it for yourself. Instead, you let someone else escape with it. Was this worth it? Before Jian Chen could reply, the Rain Abbess continued, or perhaps you were forced by the people of the Empyrean demon cult. I can see that you possess the powder of a spatial insect's corpse, and you've ingested a soul-numbing pill as well. The spatial insect emperor is also in your head. Has the Empyrean demon cult used you in an attempt to steal the beast soul I sealed up? The Rain Abbess' voice suddenly became frigid. Filled with killing intent, she said, the Empyrean demon cult, oh the Empyrean demon cult. What a vicious demonic cult to do something like this. The abbess has misunderstood. The Empyrean demon cult did not force me. I did this all willingly, Jian Chen directly broke the truth to her. Even though he knew he could place all the blame on the Empyrean demon cult if he allowed the misunderstanding to persist, which could even lead to him being spared by the Rain Abbess, he did not choose to do that. What? You weren't forced? You did it all willingly? The Rain Abbess suddenly turned around. She stared at Jian Chen with a piercing gaze. There was uncontainable fury. That's right, I did it willingly. Abbess, since I've ended up in your hands already, my fate is in your hands. Jian Chen had accepted his fate. Indeed, it was impossible for him to escape now that he had fallen into the Rain Abbess' hands, as she was just too powerful. Even if he summoned the Marshal's soul lineage, it was impossible for them to be the Rain Abbess' opponent. He might even cause great trouble to the lineage. Moreover, the Rain Abbess possessed the laws of space. Even if the Marshal's soul mountain arrived beyond the Delight Plain, it would be impossible for them to return to the mountain soul before an expert skilled with the laws of space. Although he could still fuse the swords, he had no time to charge up before her. The fusion of the twin swords could not be completed instantly, but the Rain Abbess killing him could be completed in just a moment. Humph, you've stolen my innate orchid of 5 elements, and you even tried to take the spatial insect emperor's soul as well. If it were someone else, they would be dead already. They would be truly gone from the world, but why did it have to be you, Jian Chen? The Rain Abbess said through gritted teeth. However, there was a sense of powerlessness in her voice. Does the abbess know me? Jian Chen was the one surprised now. He stared at the Rain Abbess in shock. With the Rain Abbess status, she actually knew about someone as insignificant as him. This surprised Jian Chen very much. I obviously know about the 8th successor of the Marshal's soul lineage. The Rain Abbess slowly walked over. She seemed like she was in her 30s. Even though she looked like she was approaching middle age, she was still charming, maintaining a youthful beauty. However, her eyes were very cold, and her gaze towards Jian Chen was very cold as well, like ice that would never melt. Even though there was no killing intent, her approach still pressured Jian Chen. Jian Chen, as the 8th successor of the Marshal's soul lineage, why do you work with the Empyrean demon cult and steal a divine material of the world from me? The Rain Abbess stared right at Jian Chen, as if she wanted to understand what he was thinking. The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered. The Rain Abbess treated him in a very strange manner. After a moment of thought, he wanted to speak, but his face suddenly changed. Blood suddenly began to flow from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. He tottered and directly collapsed. The spatial insect emperor in his sea of consciousness suddenly began to awaken. It was no longer like the sluggish, instinctual insect that Jian Chen once knew. It seemed to regain its intelligence after awakening. It did not directly devour Jian Chen's soul. Instead, it attacked it crazily, wanting to tear his soul to pieces. Jian Chen's soul was nowhere close to being the spatial insect emperor's opponent. He was basically powerless against the counterattack. Right when Jian Chen felt like his soul was being ripped to shreds, a gentle power suddenly poured in from outside. Jian Chen immediately felt all the pain depart from him with its appearance. Afterwards, he fell unconscious again. Outside, the Rain Abbess stood beside Jian Chen. She gently placed one of her slender fingers on Jian Chen's forehead before drawing out the beast's soul gently. A white mist immediately followed her finger out of Jian Chen's head. The white mist seemed to be alive, constantly struggling in the Rain Abbess' hands. It rapidly changed in shape, sometimes mist-like, sometimes like a grub, and sometimes completely invisible, as if it had completely hidden in the space there. However, no matter how it transformed, no matter how it struggled, it was unable to escape from the Rain Abbess finger. It was as if the Rain Abbess finger was magical, firmly entrapping it. The white mist was the soul of the spatial insect emperor. In the end, the beast soul of the spatial insect emperor stopped struggling. It turned into a grub that was only 2 inches long. It wrapped around the Rain Abbess finger in fear. Even though the grub was illusionary, it was extremely close to assuming a physical form. It was snow white, seeming just like a silkworm. After who knows how long, Jian Chen woke up again. He discovered that he currently within a wooden tub of green liquid. He had no idea what the green liquid was. It was cool, and wondrous energy was entering his body from the liquid. Stay in there and don't move. This is something to heal the soul. It's extremely precious. Even many Grand Primes don't have the fortune to use something like that. At this moment, the Rain Abbess voice rang out. Chapter 2554. Healing. Jian Chen was surprised by the Rain Abbess words. He lowered his head and glanced at the wooden tub he lay in. He carefully sensed the wondrous energy that was extremely beneficial to his soul within the green liquid. Currently, he felt that things were strange. Afterwards, he followed the sound and looked over. He saw the beautiful, white figure standing nearby, and he felt very troubled. The Grand Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult, and he had infiltrated where the Rain Abbess cultivated, stealing her precious innate orchid of 5 elements, along with a large quantity of innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid. Logically speaking, the Rain Abbess should have killed or tortured him. However, the Rain Abbess did not make things difficult for him at all. Instead, she assisted him in healing his soul. He did not know what the green liquid was, but he could understand its value. Jian Chen was very confused about why the Rain Abbess would use something so valuable on him. He had no idea what the Rain Abbess' intentions were for all this. You sure are bold. You're only an infinite prime, yet you're bold enough to try to take the spatial insect emperor, even letting it enter your soul. If it weren't for me, you probably would be dead already. It would have been almost impossible for you to survive, said the Rain Abbess. She was 100 meters away, standing beside the small fish pond. Her head was slightly lowered, as if she was looking at the fish that swam around in her. There was a supreme sense of authority in her cold voice. This was the supreme bearing of the greatest expert of the Delight Plane. Abbess, why did you save me? Jian Chen asked. He felt very puzzled. No matter how he thought about it, he could not think of anyone who had any ties with the Rain Abbess. At the same time, with the Rain Abbess' current level of cultivation, probably only Mo Tianyun and the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng were the only 2 existences he knew that she would take seriously. It was impossible for it to be Mo Tianyun, or there would have never been an attack on the Cloud Zurge Empire in the first place. As a result, only the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng remained. Is it the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng? Or the Marshal's soul lineage? Jian Chen guessed with uncertainty. He had heard the Rain Abbess mention the Marshal's soul lineage, but the Marshal's soul lineage and the Rain Abbess were clearly on separate levels. Abbess, all the divine powders you wanted have been prepared. At this moment, the Emperor of the Cloud Zurge Empire appeared. He was holding a white, jade bottle. He was wearing his dragon robes and had an impressive demeanor, but he still stood behind the Rain Abbess politely with his head lowered. As the leader of the greatest organization on the Delight Plane, the ruler of the Cloud Zurge Empire, he was afraid of even breathing too loudly before the Rain Abbess. He did not even dare to look up at her. Pour it all in, said the Rain Abbess. Yes, Abbess, Yi Zhan replied. Afterwards, he arrived before Jian Chen slowly. As he looked at Jian Chen in the wooden tub, there was a sliver of wonder in his eyes. He did not understand the matter no matter how he thought about it either. He wondered, just what kind of relationship does this person have with the Abbess? Why does the Abbess treat him with such importance, even using so many priceless God-tier heavenly resources on him? Although he was filled with questions, Yi Zhan did not dare to ask even a single one of them. He opened the bottle and poured all the powders from the god-tier heavenly resources into the green liquid without a second thought. Immediately, Jianchen felt the cool liquid become scorching all of a sudden. The powerful and brutal effects of the medicine entered his body like needles. Afterwards, Jianchen felt great comfort from his soul. The powders that had just been added were also composed of heavenly resources that could heal the soul. However, the method of intake was slightly different. All of these are high-level god-tier heavenly resources for healing the soul. Even some regular grand primes will fight for them. Now that I've used them on you, you should recover from the wounds to your soul in 3 days at most, the Rain Abbess' cold voice rang out. She stood beside the pond like a statue, having seemingly fused with the world there. She seemed unfathomable. Even the fish in the pond gave off strands of mysterious presences, as if they were resonating with the Rain Abbess, forming an extremely obscure connection. However, no one could sense this connection apart from the Rain Abbess. I'm very curious about why you would risk so much and purposefully lure the soul of the Spatial Insect Emperor into your soul. Do you know just how important your life is to certain people? The Rain Abbess asked. A gleam of light shone through Jian Chen's eyes. He asked, "May I ask who the abbess is referring to?" "Answer my question," the Rain Abbess said sternly. Immediately, an invisible pressure crushed down on Jian Chen, immediately making him feeling like he was carrying a mountain. It stifled his breathing. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and said slowly, "The Spatial Insect Emperor possesses the comprehension of the laws of space. I purposefully lured it into my soul because I want to refine the beast soul and obtain its comprehension. Do you really think you can obtain the Spatial Insect Emperor's laws of space just from refining its beast soul? What a joke. If comprehending laws were that easy, those peak organizations would have begun hunting down space beasts a long time ago to nurture countless experts," the Rain Abbess snorted with contempt. Even with her insight, she had never heard of someone refining a soul for their comprehension of laws. Jian Chen obviously knew that the Rain Abbess was right. There were no shortcuts to comprehending laws. It had to be completed step by step. Even when someone left behind a legacy, there would be a need to comprehend the mysteries within it. One needed to completely understand it before completely possessing it as their own. It was the same for the 7 golden cores of laws he previously obtained. It was impossible for him to reach the same level as the 7 ancient experts with their golden cores of laws. It was also impossible to understand all the mysteries of laws in an instant. It required time and effort for him to comprehend the power of laws within them. However, the process would just be much easier, sparing him a lot of effort. However, Jian Chen also knew that his soul was different from the soul of others. Even if others could not do it, that did not mean that he could not. With the Grand Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult's insight, he naturally knows about this. He doesn't do pointless things, the Rain Abbess murmured gently. A strange light suddenly lit up in her eyes, and with a flash, she appeared before Jian Chen silently. She directly pressed a finger against Jian Chen's forehead. Chapter 2555. The Rain Abbess bestowed. Jian Chen was unable to resist before the Rain Abbess at all. Even with his battle prowess that could take the lives of 8th heavenly layer infinite primes, he was still as insignificant as an ant in front of the Rain Abbess. Immediately, Jian Chen felt a gentle but terrifyingly powerful energy enter his soul. The energy entered Jian Chen's soul in an extremely gentle and soft manner. Even though its power was astonishing, it was not aggressive at all. It carefully inspected his soul. Jian Chen immediately gained the impression that his soul was completely seen through, as if there was nothing he could hide from the Rain Abbess. Of course, this was only an impression. He had not been completely exposed like what had happened with the Blood Tier Grand Exalt. At the same time, the sword spirits hid themselves deep within Jian Chen's body, completely vanishing. Even Jian Chen struggled to find their traces. They did this to avoid being discovered by the Rain Abbess. A while later, the Rain Abbess rescinded her power. She stood before Jian Chen quietly in her snow-white clothes as her eyes became as deep as the stars, as if she was peering into the profound secrets of ways. She stared right at Jian Chen and remained silent for quite a long while. It was like she was shocked. No wonder I can't peer into your past or future, or even anything that has to do with you. You really are an extremely special existence. The Ran Abbess gaze returned to normal. She stared at Jian Chen in a strange light. The gaze was filled with bizarre, as if she was looking at a monster. True chaotic force, even if it's just a sliver, it's still chaotic force, yet it has actually fused with your soul. This is unprecedented. Not just in the Saints' world, but even across all 6 worlds. You are definitely the first deviant to appear since the formation of the universe. The Rain Abbess sighed. The shock she experienced from Jian Chen was just too great, causing her to experience emotional upheaval. Although the fusion with the chaotic force has allowed your soul to change in an unbelievable manner, great fortune often comes with great disaster. I have a feeling that your future will be extremely difficult, where you will be doomed from the slightest carelessness, said the Rain Abbess. Jian Chen was filled with admiration towards the Rain Abbess from that. The Rain Abbess was truly the greatest expert of the Delight Plane. Not only was she powerful, but her insight was also deep. She could tell with a single glance that he would face a crisis in the future. Jian Chen had always maintained an optimistic attitude towards his unforeseen crisis in the future. He did not feel pressured because he had heard about his future fate from the sword spirits a very long time ago. His existence might have been an oddity, forbidden by the world. He would be mercilessly erased by the world in the end. Now, Jian Chen could already vaguely understand that being forbidden by the world actually meant being forbidden by the laws. In the future, he might end up standing in opposition to the laws of the world, where he had to face them. It was funny now that this was mentioned. Whether it be the experts of the immortals' world or the saints' world, they all needed to comprehend the laws of the world to increase their strength. Even Jian Chen was not an exception, yet he had to oppose them in the end. That was rather hilarious. The Rain Abbess sank into her thoughts. She said gently after diligent consideration, "Now I understand why the Empyrean demon cult wants you to refine the spatial insect emperor." With the Grand Elder of the Empyrean demon cult's insight, he would never be able to think of something like this. Even if he does, he won't be able to refine the spatial insect emperor with his strength. This must have been requested by the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult because only he has the ability to do something like that. The Rain Abbess' gaze suddenly became piercing. She stared right at Jian Chen and said, "Since the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult thought of something like this, he must know that your soul is unique. Jian Chen, have you met this Great Elder before? What is your relationship with him?" "I have indeed met the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. He is a senior I respect very much," said Jian Chen. "A senior you respect very much?" The Rain Abbess sneered and said, "He's a person who creates war and slaughter across the saints' world, a demon who specially collects the essence, blood and soul energy of the departed. Yet, you treat him as a respect senior. What a joke. Although I don't know what his intentions are with this, he is indeed a senior that I respect. Enough, I don't want to bicker with you. Jian Chen, let me ask you this. Do you want the beast soul of the spatial insect emperor?" The Rain Abbess extended a finger, and a tiny grub immediately appeared on it. It was snow-white and seemed like a silkworm. This was the beast soul of the spatial insect emperor. Jian Chen's eyes immediately narrowed when he saw the small grub. He naturally recognized it. This was the first time he had seen the spatial insect emperor so clearly. However, the insect emperor that had wreaked havoc in his soul, injuring his soul with just a hiss, was now curled up on the Rain Abbess' finger, trembling. Its tiny eyes were filled with fear. "May I ask why the abbess has asked that?" The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered. He seemed to be able to guess what the Rain Abbess wanted to do. However, he was filled with doubt. He could not think of any person as the reason for why the Rain Abbess would take such special care of him. No matter how he wondered, he was unable to think of the certain people the Rain Abbess was referring to. This was because out of all the experts he had been in contact with and knew, there did not seem to be a single person connected to the Rain Abbess. The Rain Abbess ignored Jian Chen. She looked at the spatial insect emperor on her finger and said, refining the beast's soul and obtaining its comprehension of the laws of space should normally be impossible. No one can achieve something like that in the saint's world, but you might be different. Your existence itself is a miracle. You've broken the logic of the world. Perhaps the impossible will become possible with you, as chaos contains everything. Since that's the case, I'll bestow the beast's soul to you. I want to witness a miracle, the Rain Abbess said very softly. Even though the soul of a spatial insect emperor was very precious and valuable, she did not seem pained at all. Afterwards, she extended her finger gently, and a power immediately entered the beast's soul, dispersing it into a mist. But very soon, the beast's soul condensed back into shape. However, its eyes were completely blank and dull now. Its lingering intelligence had been completely dispersed by the Rain Abbess. Chapter 2556. The Scarlet Emperor. The beast soul of the spatial insect emperor was completely powerless before the Rain Abbess. Its consciousness collapsed easily. At that moment, the soul of the spatial insect emperor lost all self-consciousness. It had been completely reduced to a soul that possessed the comprehension of the laws of space. The laws of space was an innate ability it was born with. It would not disperse with its consciousness. After all, spatial insects were a special species. Every single one of them was beloved by space, possessing a natural control over space. They had the ability to move through space as they wished. Afterwards, the Rain Abbess brought her slender finger to Jian Chen's forehead. The beast soul condensed on her fingertip turned into a mist and disappeared into his head. The soul of the spatial insect emperor had entered Jian Chen's soul under the Rain Abbess control. The fragments of the laws of space are hidden within the soul of the spatial insect emperor. Logically speaking, no one should be able to absorb them, but perhaps a miracle will happen with you. I've already bestowed the soul to you, so do not disappoint me. The Rain Abbess voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. She stared right at him, as if she was paying close attention to his soul and hoping to witness a miracle. Taking the comprehension of laws from someone else through something close to devouring them was unprecedented in the saint's world. In the saint's world, cultivation could be taken through various means, and souls could also be devoured through various methods and be used for growth. However, there had never been any shortcuts for the laws of the world. Now, Jian Chen no longer wondered about why the Rain Abbess was so generous with him. He concentrated and tossed aside all other thoughts. His mind was completely placed on his sea of consciousness to focus on refining the soul of the spatial insect emperor. Under the watch of a peak expert like the Rain Abbess, Jian Chen completely stopped worrying. He did not worry about any counterattacks from the soul, so he placed all of his efforts on refining the soul. However, very soon, Jian Chen became troubled. He discovered that even though the consciousness of the spatial insect emperor had collapsed, becoming extremely weak from the Rain Abbess strike, he still could not refine it. Even if it were dead, it had still been a grand prime level existence in the past after all. He was only an infinite prime right now, so he was like an ant, while the spatial insect emperor was an elephant. An ant trying to devour an elephant could no longer be described as virtually impossible. It was simply impossible. You're too weak. It looks like I still need to help you out. The Rain Abbess clearly sensed Jian Chen's situation as well. She shook her head gently and turned around, leaving the forbidden grounds. The Rain Abbess was gone for several hours. When she returned, she was no longer alone. Instead, a red-robed old man followed behind her. The old man seemed ancient. Even though his presence was concealed, he still gave off a scorching presence. The red robes on him seemed to be condensed from flames, giving off a red glow. The Rain Abbess led the old man to where Jian Chen was. She said, "Scarlet Emperor, use your heaven-scorching furnace to refine his soul." Be careful not to harm him, the Rain Abbess said coldly, without any emotions at all. It seemed more like an order. The Scarlet Emperor was a figure only cultivators with high status on the Delight Plane could know because he was a peak expert, as well as one of the 4 ancestors of the Cloud Zerg Empire. He grasped the laws of fire. The Scarlet Emperor's old eyes shone with a fiery light as he carefully studied Jian Chen, who lay in the wooden tub. He was slightly curious. Abbess, you brought me over from billions of kilometers away just for him? Although he was also one of the ancestors of the Cloud Zerg Empire, the Scarlet Emperor clearly seemed rather restrained before the Rain Abbess. The Rain Abbess nodded. Scarlet Emperor, I'll leave it up to you. With that, the Rain Abbess turned around and left. She sat down beside the small pond, no longer paying attention to Jian Chen's matters. The Scarlet Emperor studied Jian Chen as his doubts deepened. He thought to himself, strange. Who is this kid? His cultivation is so low. I don't think I've ever seen him before, nor have I heard the Rain Abbess mention him before. And I had thought it would be something severe for the Rain Abbess to travel so far to fetch me. It's all for this person in the end? Suddenly, the Scarlet Emperor was surprised. His eyes shone, as if 2 flames leapt around in there. He stared right at Jian Chen's forehead. It's actually the soul of the Spatial Insect Emperor. The Scarlet Emperor was stern. He knew about the origins of the Spatial Insect Emperor extremely well. If it were still at peak condition, even he would be forced to flee if he encountered it. He would not be its opponent. However, the Spatial Insect Emperor had been slain by the Rain Abbess. Its body was destroyed, and it was reduced to a soul used to guard the forbidden grounds. Now that he had discovered the Spatial Insect Emperor in Jian Chen's soul, the Scarlet Emperor naturally understood what it all meant. The Abbess actually wants to give the Spatial Insect Emperor to this kid? The Scarlet Emperor was astounded. He stared at Jian Chen for a while before not saying anything else. With a flip of his hand, a flaming cauldron appeared out of nowhere. The heaven-scorching furnace was the Scarlet Emperor's most precious item. It was a high-quality god artifact, but it was one that ranked towards the bottom among high-quality god artifacts. Jian Chen was sucked into the heaven-scorching furnace along with the wooden tub. Immediately, the cauldron surged with flames. Chapter 2557, Primordial Realm Laws. As soon as the faint, golden flames appeared in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness, they turned into a roaring sea of fire. It formed a blanketing, dazzling golden fire that flooded Jian Chen's entire soul. Jian Chen did not resist at all. At that moment, he understood that his fate was completely up to the expert who controlled the laws of fire. They would only need a single thought to annihilate his soul. This was because the flames were just too powerful. They contained the power of laws, the presence of ways. At their level, they could basically incinerate anything. Grand Prime. This thought appeared in Jian Chen's head. Only Grand Primes could possess such terrifying comprehensions of the laws of fire. However, even though Jian Chen's sea of consciousness was filled with terrifying, golden flames, they did not cause him any harm at all. As a matter of fact, he did not even feel any heat. If it were not for the soul of the Spatial Insect Emperor gradually growing faint under the golden flames, he might have misunderstood and thought the flames were only an illusion. Very clearly, the Scarlet Emperor's grasp over fire had reached an unbelievable level. It was beyond perfection. Jian Chen immediately felt like it had become much easier for him to refine the soul of the Spatial Insect Emperor now that the golden flames had appeared. He could barely absorb it now. The beast's soul contained fragments of the laws of space. The fragments came naturally with spatial insects and were firmly rooted within their souls. It was impossible for any cultivator or space beast to absorb them. However, Jian Chen was an exception. His soul had fused with a strand of true chaotic force, breaking the logic of the world. It had already undergone an unbelievable transformation. Chaos was a supreme power that could contain anything and everything, so what was impossible for others was not necessarily impossible for Jian Chen. After being refined by the flames, Jian Chen absorbed the soul of the spatial insect emperor bit by bit. Immediately, strands of profound, complicated comprehension of the laws of space appeared in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness. Jian Chen immediately felt like his own comprehension of the laws of space had been increased drastically. This filled Jian Chen with uncontainable joy. In reality, refining the soul of the spatial insect emperor and obtaining its comprehension of the laws of space had only been a concept the entire time. After all, no one had managed to benefit from a shortcut like this throughout the history of the saint's world. As a result, he did not hold too much hope in refining the soul of the spatial insect emperor. He had been ready for failure. Now that he discovered that he could directly absorb the spatial insect emperor's comprehension, he naturally ravished with joy. This was a fortuitous encounter that was almost impossible for him to come across in his life. He discovered that absorbing the laws of space from the soul of the spatial insect emperor was not like the situation with the 7 golden cores of laws he previously obtained, which required further comprehension. The soul of the spatial insect emperor directly increased his comprehension of the laws of space. As he absorbed the soul, it was equivalent to directly absorbing the comprehension of laws of space. Jian Chen knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He immediately suppressed his joy and began to focus on absorbing the soul. As the soul was slowly absorbed by Jian Chen, he could clearly sense his comprehension of the laws of space rapidly increase. It had gone from early God King to mid-God King, and then to late God King. Completely submerged in the joy of absorbing the soul, Jian Chen forgot about time and forgot about himself. The only thought he had was to increase his strength as much as possible. His comprehension of the laws of space seemed to increase without stopping. It inched from late God King towards the primordial realm like it was unstoppable. After who knows how long, the golden flames in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness vanished. The Scarlet Emperor had already let Jian Chen out from the heaven-scorching furnace. He clasped his hands and said, "Abbess, the soul of the spatial insect emperor has been completely refined." The Rain Abbess suddenly arrived next to Jian Chen. She stared right at Jian Chen's forehead with her cold eyes as a strange light appeared in them. "You really haven't disappointed me," the Rain Abbess murmured. At that moment, her gaze towards Jian Chen changed slightly. It was as if she was looking at a monster. This child can actually directly absorb the laws of space from the spatial insect emperor. I've never seen or heard of anything like it. However, it seems like his soul is rather special, the Scarlet Emperor said as he stared at Jian Chen in a strange light as well. It's exactly because his soul is different that he can achieve this, the Rain Abbess said coldly, but her gaze remained fixed on Jian Chen's forehead. With that, the Rain Abbess waved her hand gently. The Scarlet Emperor naturally understood what the Rain Abbess was trying to convey. She was telling him that he had completed his purpose here and could leave now. The Scarlet Emperor did not show any displeasure towards the way the Rain Abbess treated him. He stowed his heaven-scorching furnace away and clasped his fist at the Rain Abbess before leaving where she cultivated. Time passed silently. Unknowingly, it had already been half a month. During this half a month of absorption, Jian Chen's comprehension of the laws of space had formally reached the primordial realm. After reaching the primordial realm, he advanced one more step, reaching the second heavenly layer. After reaching the second heavenly layer, Jian Chen finally stopped, as he discovered that he was unable to absorb the comprehension of the laws of space anymore. It was as if his soul had become full, unable to hold any more fragments of the laws of space. If he wanted to absorb more, he needed to strengthen his soul. A shortcut is still a shortcut in the end. It's not as reliable as comprehending it personally, thought Jian Chen. He knew his soul was definitely not only as strong as a second heavenly layer infinite primes. It had reached the third heavenly layer at the very least. However, his comprehension of the laws of space just happened to stop at the second heavenly layer. Regardless, he was satisfied, as he had elevated the comprehension of another law, aside from the way of the sword, to the primordial realm. If he used the two laws together, his battle prowess would increase significantly. Of course, the most important aspect was that the laws of space could be used in ways beyond fighting. It's a pity that I can't absorb the energy in the spatial insect emperor's soul, or my soul will definitely reach a whole new level. Jian Chen felt a sense of pity. Jian Chen's attention returned to his body. He discovered that he was still lying in the wooden bucket, but the green liquid in there had become cloudy. The medicinal effects had been completely absorbed by him. Jian Chen leapt out from the wooden tub and looked at the beautiful, white figure nearby. He immediately bowed and said, "Thank you for your bestowal, Abbess." Chapter 2558, Chaotic Space opens. You don't need to thank me. The reason why I saved you is all for his sake, or you definitely would not be alive for intruding upon where I cultivate alone, the Rain Abbess said coldly. She did not care about Jian Chen's gratitude at all. Jian Chen smiled resplendently and said nothing else. He could already tell from the Rain Abbess's behavior that the only reason why he was still alive was because of that mysterious figure. Otherwise, the Rain Abbess would never have spared him even if she learnt that his soul was special and had fused with a strand of true chaotic force. However, Jian Chen could not figure out who that mysterious figure was. As a result, he did not try to think about his identity anymore. As for the Empyrean demon cult, they've stolen my innate orchid of 5 elements, along with a large quantity of innate spiritual mud and innate spiritual liquid. All of these come from the Xianhuang microcosm and possess Xianhuang qi. They're invaluable. If they don't give me a satisfactory explanation for this, I'll never drop the matter. The Rain Abbess' voice was chilling cold as soon as she mentioned the Empyrean demon cult. She was extremely furious. Afterwards, Jian Chen was asked to leave. Jian Chen emerged from where the Rain Abbess cultivated. When she arrived before the protective formations around the forbidden grounds, the formations ripped open by themselves, revealing a 3-meter-wide tunnel that led right to the outside world. Jian Chen passed through the formations smoothly and appeared in the depths of the imperial palace. A middle-aged man with a striking appearance seemed to have been waiting there for him for a long time now. The man stood there in his dragon robes. He was the emperor of the Cloud Zurge Empire, Yizhan. As if Yizhan had especially waited there for Jian Chen, his eyes lit up, and he studied Jian Chen as he said, "The abbess has orders for me to take you off the Delight Plain safely. Come with me." However, as soon as Jian Chen emerged from the forbidden grounds behind Yizhan, figures flickered in the surroundings. Over a dozen experts of various ages basically appeared at the same time, surrounding Jian Chen. They all gave off powerful presences. Without any exception, they were all primordial realm experts. They consisted of infinite primes and chaotic primes. Why would it be him? He's actually still alive? Emperor, this person stands with the Empyrean demon cult. Now that the Empyrean demon cult has become our empire's mortal enemy, we cannot leave him be. We need to execute him immediately. Emperor, please execute this person immediately. The primordial realm experts looked at Jian Chen coldly, showing heavy killing intent. Yizhan's face sank. He gave off the bearing of a ruler, and he glanced around in a dignified manner. He said sternly, "I am under the abbess' orders to escort this person off the Delight Plain safely. Why don't you all back off?" "What? The abbess?" The expressions of all the experts changed when they heard that word. That single word seemed to be magical, stunning them all. He clearly intruded on the forbidden grounds, yet the abbess hasn't killed him? This doesn't make sense. This person is with the Empyrean demon cult. The Empyrean demon cult has caused our Cloud Zurge Empire heavy losses, a few primordial realm experts murmured. However, their killing intent did not decrease. Instead, they were unwilling to accept this. "If you want to kill me, come find me on the Cloud Plain. However, you infinite primes really might not be able to kill me," Jian Chen said calmly and fearlessly. Now that his laws of space had reached the primordial realm, his confidence had swelled. With his laws of space and laws of the sword combined, along with his various techniques, he was confident about dealing with any infinite prime. Afterwards, he vanished from before the primordial realm experts, without leaving a single trace behind. The laws of space. The eyes of the primordial realm experts around Jian Chen narrowed. No. Why do his laws of space seem rather different from the laws of space I've seen in the past? He hasn't created any pulses at all, a chaotic prime said sternly as he expressed his surprise. He has already arrived in a city 10 million kilometers away. Strange, why does he leave no trace behind when he uses the laws of space? There isn't even a pulse of the laws of space, even Yi Zhan was surprised. He looked at where Jian Chen had vanished from as he felt emotional turmoil. This seems like the ability of spatial insect emperors. Only spatial insect emperors, which are born with a grasp over space, can move about silently such that no one can sense them. Afterwards, Jian Chen found an interplanar teleportation formation and left the Delight Plane. With Heya beside him, he had already confirmed that there was no one else he was familiar with left on the Delight Plane. Whether it be Su Ran or the protectors from the Tian Yuan clan, they had all left the Delight Plane with the Empyrean demon cult. There was obviously no need for him to stay. The experts of the Cloud Surge Empire did not stop Jian Chen, allowing him to return to the Cloud Plane smoothly. Before long, Jian Chen returned to the Tian Yuan clan. As soon as he returned, Su Ran, Nubis, Ming Dong, Shiyu, and the others all crowded over, hurrying over as quickly as they could. Su Ran, Nubis, and the protectors had returned 3 days ago. Jian Chen, you finally returned. I heard that you were trapped in the Cloud Surge Empire on the Delight Plane. If you still didn't return, I planned on going back and calling for reinforcements so that we could kill our way into the Cloud Surge Empire, Ming Dong said. He was also relieved by Jian Chen's safe return. If it were not for the fact that he had learnt that Jian Chen was in no danger from Su Ran, Ming Dong would have never waited until now. He would have returned to the heavenly palace of Bisheng for reinforcements a long time ago. Brother, you've made me sick with worry. Fortunately, the Grand Elder didn't trick us. The Rain Abbess of the Cloud Surge Empire really didn't make things difficult for you. Nubis exhaled deeply before making his way over to Jian Chen's side. He whispered mysteriously, "Oh right. Brother, what's your relationship with the Rain Abbess? Why hasn't someone as powerful as the Rain Abbess made things difficult for you?" Jian Chen did not go into detail about what he experienced in the Cloud Surge Empire. He had a simple conversation with everyone before immediately entering seclusion. He had made great advancements in his laws of space, but he had not completely absorbed the soul of the spatial insect emperor. Most of it still lingered in his sea of consciousness. He needed to check on the situation immediately to see whether the lingering power would result in any consequences. On the distant Prosper Plain, the grand heavenly palace of Bisheng stood at its center. A hazy figure obscured by the light of ways sat on the highest floor. This figure was one of the 7 past grand exalts of the saints' world, the Inata Grand Exalt. Suddenly, the Inata Grand Exalt opened her eyes. She looked at the sky with her cold, emotionless eyes. Her gaze seemed able to pierce through everything, allowing her to see the origins of the world. The chaotic space has finally opened, the Inata Grand Exalt said gently. Her voice seemed to possess all the sounds of the world, making it impossible to detect its basic nature. A pulse appeared in her cold, emotionless pupils that could look down on everything at that moment as well. Bai Rong, immediately go to the Cloud Plane and fetch your junior brother. Yes, Master. Chapter 2559. The Grand Exalts depart. Jian Chen sat 3 inches above the ground within a secret room in the Tian Yuan clan. He inspected his soul and his sea of consciousness. A white mist hovered within a region of his sea of consciousness. This mist came from the soul of the spatial insect emperor. Right now, it was more like pure laws of the world than the soul of the spatial insect emperor. This was because all that remained was soul energy that contained the comprehension of the laws of space after the Scarlet Emperor's refinement. Jian Chen treated the beast soul with great value, as he had only consumed less than 1/10, or an even smaller fraction, of the beast soul to reach a comprehension at the second heavenly layer of infinite prime. If he could completely absorb the laws within the beast's soul, his comprehension of the laws of space would reach chaotic prime at the very least. There might even be the slightest possibility of him directly reaching Grand Prime. Jian Shen did not dare to consider Grand Prime right now. He would be satisfied even if he could only reach chaotic prime. Ziying, Qing Sua, help me check if there are any issues with the spatial insect emperor's soul. Has its consciousness been completely destroyed? Jian Shen called for the sword spirits. Jian Shen did not dare to treat the remaining soul energy from the spatial insect emperor carelessly. The spatial insect emperor was a grand prime after all. It was extremely terrifying. If its consciousness had not completely vanished, if even a tiny sliver of it remained, that would be a devastating problem for Jian Shen. It would be able to maneuver all the soul energy lingering in his sea of consciousness easily with any remaining consciousness. While Jian Shen remained in seclusion, an unwelcomed guest appeared in the Tian Yuan clan. She was a young woman who seemed to be in her 20s. Even though she seemed just like a mortal, without giving off any indication of cultivation, her bearing was otherworldly, and she was pretty enough to outshine the moon. She had come alone, appearing in the Tian Yuan clan silently. The powerful formations personally cast down by Ming Xia in the surroundings of the Tian Yuan clan did not seem to be able to stop her. It was as if she could move through the impenetrable Tian Yuan clan as she wished. No one discovered her. This woman was the 8th Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, Bai Rong. Junior brother? Bai Rong appeared outside a hall in the forbidden grounds of the Tian Yuan clan and called out gently. Her voice directly penetrated the many formations around the hall, ringing out inside. Very soon, the entrance to the hall opened up. Ming Dong emerged with the princess of the Thousand Lotus Empire, Yun Xiaoyan. He was both surprised and in joy. At the same time, the divine general of the heavenly palace of Bisheng, Ming Xia, also appeared to another side. He bowed towards Bai Rong and said, "Greetings to the 8th Majesty. 8th Senior Sister, why have you come?" Ming Dong arrived before Bai Rong in a hurry and invited her in warmly. Bai Rong was the person Ming Dong was closest with in the heavenly palace of Bisheng. As a result, Ming Dong held much respect towards this senior sister of his. "Junior brother, I've come this time under Master's orders to fetch you," said Bai Rong. "To fetch me? Why?" 8th Senior Sister, I like this place very much. I don't want to return right now." Ming Dong refused without any hesitation. Bai Rong was not angered. "Master is about to go on a distant journey, so she won't be able to protect you at all times. Moreover, the heaven-splitting ancestor has tried attacking you in the past, so it's very dangerous for you to remain outside. Then that's even more reason why I can't leave. What if the heaven-splitting ancestor turns his attention towards the Tian Yuan clan? Senior sister, just go back. I'll watch over the Tian Yuan clan," Ming Dong replied without a second thought. Seeing how Ming Dong had made up his mind, Bai Rong knew that she could not persuade him. She could only take him back forcefully. After careful consideration, Bai Rong did not end up doing that. She sighed gently before she turned around and left. A day later, the Inata Grand Exalt stood up in the heavenly palace of Bisheng. The light of ways permeated his surroundings as they resonated, making him seem like he had fused with the ways. He represented the will of the world just by standing there. His figure was hazy, filled with a sense of mysteriousness. Afterwards, he took a step. Immediately, the stars revolved, and the world receded. He seemed to cross the entire saint's world with that step, crossing an unbelievable distance. It was as if he had reached the boundary of the universe. The space before him was chaotic. The laws were a mess, and the 5 elements were completely reversed. There was no order at all. This was the boundary of the saint's world. The chaotic space was filled with various violently energies that could seemingly obliterate anything. This was not a true chaotic space but the boundary of a world. The Inata Grand Exalt stood before the boundary. Afterwards, he gently swept across it with his finger, directly ripping it open and leaving the saint's world. On the Devour Plain, the Blood-Tier Grand Exalt stood in a blood-red divine hall. He was surrounded by a dense layer of blood-like mist. He warned the 9 brilliant Star Lord sternly. The chaotic space has opened. I'm going there in search of ancient chaos chi. I don't know when I'll return, but while I'm gone, you must be careful with your actions. Do not infuriate an Ata. Yes, Master, replied the 9 brilliant Star Lord politely from below. The Blood-Tier Grand Exalt left the Devour Plain. He chose to go to the world boundary elsewhere, ripping it open and leaving the Saints' world. A graceful, handsome young man strolled through the gardens on the sacred mountain where the 9 brilliant Star Lord cultivated on the Star Brilliance Plain. A group of people followed him closely. Most of them were great beauties. Their eyes were filled with infatuation as they giggled and cast flirtatious glances towards the young man. It seemed like as soon as the young man gave them a signal, these young ladies from large clans would throw themselves at him without any hesitation, offering up their bodies and souls. The young man seemed to enjoy this very much. At this moment, 2 beautiful women clung to his left and right arms. He smiled evilly, burying his face in the chests of the 2 women from time to time. He was enchanted by it. Everyone knew about this young man. He was the young Star Lord. It just happened to be 1,000 years since the young Star Lord had started cultivating. He had reached late God King. However, he was definitely someone who could act as he wished, and the large organizations would never dare to offend him on the Star Brilliance Plain. Instead, these organizations would do everything that they could to establish good terms with him or rope him in. He possessed an extremely great status. This was all because his foster father was the supreme existence of the Star Brilliance Plain, the 9 brilliant Star Lord. Young Star Lord, there's no need for you to submerge yourself in these common appearances. Even if you combine all the women behind you, they're going to be nowhere near as great as the prodigy of the Taoist sect of divine sound, Shangguan Mu'er. This Shangguan Mu'er is the only successor of the 3rd ancestor. Whether it be her beauty, strength, or potential, she's far greater than these common people. Dao Gongming followed closely behind the young Star Lord. He did his best to speak of all the positive features that Shangguan Mu'er possessed, doing his best to make the young Star Lord take notice of her. He knew the young Star Lord was lustful. As long as he saw Shangguan Mu'er's beauty, he believed that the young Star Lord would become enchanted. Stop exaggerating things to get attention, young Master Gongming. I've heard of this Shangguan Mu'er as well. She's only a regular woman. She's nowhere near as impressive as you are describing her to be. The women around the young Star Lord rolled their eyes at Dao Gongming and retorted. The young Star Lord was their target. How could they let someone else steal the young Star Lord's attention? Tian Yao, come meet me immediately. At this moment, a voice that only the young Star Lord could hear rang out in his head. This voice came from the 9 brilliant Star Lord. Chapter 2560, The Calm Before the Storm. Tian Yao was the young Star Lord's name. Not a lot of people knew this name. Aside from the 9 brilliant Star Lord, basically everyone referred to Tian Yao as the young Star Lord. When he heard the message, the young Star Lord's frivolous expression immediately stiffened up. He could not help but grow stern. He showed respect and fear. The young Star Lord had been raised in lavish conditions where he was fawned by all. Wherever he went in the Saints' world, he would be surrounded by a group of followers and admirers. All experts treated him politely, so he had a fearless personality as a result. He would only feel fear when he faced his foster father, the 9 brilliant Star Lord. Consequently, the young Star Lord did not hesitate at all when he was summoned by the 9 brilliant Star Lord. He pushed the 2 beautiful women in his arms away without a second thought and rushed off to the peak of the mountain. The 9 brilliant Star Lord sat in the main seat within a majestic divine hall on the top of the mountain. His presence was completely concealed, making him seem like a mortal. However, his eyes that were as deep as the cosmos stared off into the distance blankly as if he was in thought. Greetings, Father. The young Star Lord arrived. He was polite and directly dropped to the ground on his knees. His voice seemed to snap the 9 brilliant Star Lord back to his senses. His gaze changed as soon as he returned to himself. It became rather mixed. He stared at the young Star Lord below with an indescribably gaze. He remained silent for a long time. Seeing how his father had not responded despite such a long time, the young Star Lord developed doubts. This was the first time he had seen his foster father act like this in the 1,000 years he had been alive. However, the young Star Lord dared not talk too much. He understood that his foster father was proud. If his foster father did not speak, he dared not speak either. Tianyao, how many years has it been since you began cultivating? Only a long while later did the 9 brilliant Star Lord ask slowly and calmly. Father, I just happen to have cultivated for 1,000 years, the young Star Lord said politely. Just 1,000 years, the 9 brilliant Star Lord murmured. Just how short is 1,000 years? That might only be a blink of an eye. However, you've managed to reach Lake God King in a single millennium. Even across the entire Saints world, there are probably only a handful of people who can match such talent. It's no worse compared to the me of the past. If I create a new space for your growth, your future accomplishments will be unlimited. The 9 brilliant Star Lord was right. People who could reach Lake God King in just 1,000 years were indeed mystical existences in the Saints world, as most people would require tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years to accomplish the same thing. It was basically unprecedented to reach God King in just 2 or 3 centuries like what Jian Chen accomplished. Of course, reincarnations of powerful experts were exceptions. As a result, the 9 brilliant Star Lord was extremely satisfied with the young Star Lord's current accomplishments. As a matter of fact, he would take pride in it. It's all because of father's support, the young Star Lord said extremely modestly, but he felt complacent inside. All right. The 9 brilliant Star Lord raised his head slightly. He stared at the young Star Lord with mixed feelings and said, Tianyao, just cultivating doesn't mean you can become a true expert, so it's about time for you to go out and train. You can't return until you reach the primordial realm. Do you understand? As father wishes, you're not allowed to take too many experts with you this time. I'll only let you take a single infinite prime. Bear that in mind. After the young Star Lord left, the 9 brilliant Star Lord sat on his throne as he stared outside with mixed feelings. He murmured to himself, for the sake of the grand scheme of things, I can only sacrifice you, Tianyao. The 9 brilliant Star Lord suddenly seemed like he was peering into something. He peered into the young Star Lord's future course of life and secretly made various arrangements, ensuring that the young Star Lord's future path would follow what he secretly planned. This matter relates to the Anata Grand Prime. I can't interfere with it too much, nor can I make it too obvious. I need to be careful with everything. The young Star Lord returned to the bevy of women. He looked at the young ladies around him as he felt great reluctance. He understood that he could not take a single woman with him due to his foster father's orders. He could not afford to face the consequences of angering his foster father. The young Star Lord felt a natural sense of fear towards the 9 brilliant Star Lord. After all, the 9 brilliant Star Lord was a 9th heavenly layer Grand Prime, a figure only second to Grand Exalts. He was on a completely different level, and he was strong enough to crush all weaker cultivators. I'm about to go out and train, so I probably won't be able to accompany you all from today onwards, the young Star Lord said reluctantly. As he looked at the beautiful figures of the women, a nefarious light lit up in his eyes. He, young Star Lord, allow me to properly treat you tonight then as a parting gift. Immediately, a woman giggled pleasantly like a chime. In the crowd, Dao Gongming immediately rejoiced. He said, Young master, the cloud plain just happens to be a perfect place for you to train. All right. I'll go straight to the cloud plain tomorrow. Master has departed. A lady surrounded in blinding light hovered in a foreign space within the saint's world. She accompanied the sea of stars as all the laws resonated with her, as if she had completely fused with the surroundings. She was the first majesty of the heavenly palace of Bisheng, Exian. Many fragments of planets floated through the sea of stars where Exian stood. The space there had just settled down as well. She had clashed with the heaven-splitting ancestor here earlier, crushing countless celestial bodies and punching a hole through space. The area had only just recovered. And you still don't want to return? It's not up to you anymore. Suddenly, Exian muttered and extended her hand directly into space. The entire arm vanished. At the same time, a pulse of energy terrifying enough to cause despair surged forth in the southern region of the cloud plain. It caused the entire region to shake violently, and even the entire cloud plain trembled. The sky above the Pingtian Empire shattered, and a hand completely condensed from energy descended, heading right towards the Tian Yuan clan. Bang! 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 All the formations around the Tian Yuan clan were completely useless before the hand. All of them shattered to pieces as the hand fell. Boom! In the end, the hand of energy smashed through a divine hall in the Tian Yuan clan and grabbed Ming Dong from there. First Majesty. To another side, Ming Dong's bodyguard, Ming Xia, appeared. He stared at the hand from the sky and showed respect. He bowed in a hurry. He dared not try to stop it. Chapter 2561. The young Star Lord's arrival. Basically the moment that Ming Dong was taken away, Jian Chen appeared before the destroyed divine hall. His laws of space had already reached the primordial realm, so he appeared here from the secret room with just a thought. He had basically teleported over. Jian Chen stared at the destroyed divine hall and the ruined formations in the surroundings of the clan. He was stern. Brother Dong. Brother Dong. Brother Dong has been taken away. The princess of the Thousand Lotus Empire, Yun Xiaoyan, ran out from the ruins in a hurry. She had paled in fright. She was the princess of the Thousand Lotus Empire and a supreme god king on the god king's throne, so she should not have become so flustered. However, the hand that had appeared earlier possessed a supreme pressure and a terrifying presence. It had directly struck fear into her heart, throwing her mind into disarray. Uncle Ming, what's this all about? Brother Dong has been taken away. Yun Xiaoyan ran over to Ming Xia and looked at him pleadingly. On the other hand, Jian Chen clearly remained more composed. He also looked at Ming Xia, waiting for his reply. He knew Ming Dong and Ming Xia's identities. As his protector, it simply did not make sense for Ming Xia to do nothing now that Ming Dong had been taken away. There's no need to panic. It's the First Majesty. Ming Xia said to Yun Xiaoyan before looking at Jian Chen. Since the Ninth Majesty has departed, it's time for me to go as well. Thank you for taking care of the Tian Yuan clan in the past, Senior Ming. Jian Chen clasped his fist at Ming Xia and said sincerely. Patriarch, what happened? At this moment, Shiyu, Nubis, and the other members of the upper echelon arrived as well. All the protectors of the Tian Yuan clan also came. A hand had fallen from the sky and destroyed all the formations around the Tian Yuan clan. The disturbance created was just too great, having shaken up the entire Tian Yuan clan and provincial city. As a matter of fact, all the experts on the cloud plane had sent the senses of their souls over to check on the situation. This included the ancient existences of the Righteous Alliance and the Four Symbols Alliance. What a terrifying pulse of energy. The pressure is enough for me to shake. The Tian Yuan clan has faced another disaster. Who was the person who did it? Did they have grievances with the heavenly palace of Bisheng? That's not likely. Ming Xia is a divine general of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Looking at how calm he is, there's clearly something strange about this. What a terrifying hand. It seems like it comes from a woman. Out of all women, there are only a handful who have reached such a terrifying level of cultivation. I know who she is. She's the First Majesty of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. As the powerful senses of the souls came in contact with one another, they began to converse. Among the 49 great plains of the saints' world, the cloud plane was more undeveloped and weaker. Across all these years, the strongest expert they had given birth to was only a fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime. Who knows when was the last time a fifth heavenly layer Grand Prime appeared? As a result, now that a supreme expert had done something on the cloud plane, it naturally shook up the entire place. It made all the experts uneasy. Ming Dong has been taken back by the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. With this, all the experts on the cloud plane learnt that Ming Dong had left. Only a single divine general from the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng remained in the Tian Yuan clan. The divine general from the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, Ming Xie, has left too. That Princess Yun Xiaoyan of some Thousand Lotus Empire left with Ming Xie as well. Before long, the peak figures of the cloud plane all witnessed Ming Xie and Yun Xiaoyan step onto an interplanar teleportation formation before vanishing from the cloud plane. It should be because of the heaven-splitting ancestor. The First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng has been chasing him around in the saints' world. The grievance is definitely deep. Last time, the heaven-splitting ancestor even came to the cloud plane and tried to take Ming Dong away. In the end, he was stopped by the First Majesty. Now that the First Majesty has taken Ming Dong away, it's clearly to stop the heaven-splitting ancestor from doing anything to Ming Dong again. All the peak experts knew the reason. This instead made them treat Ming Dong with even greater importance. This was because the two matters allowed them to clearly see just how important Ming Dong was to the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. She basically went to whatever lengths she had to go to protect him. Of course, they did not know Ming Dong's true identity. They still believed that Ming Dong was the First Majesty's disciple. In the Tian Yuan clan, Jian Chen stared at the damaged divine hull. He seemed to be in a daze. Ming Dong had left. The divine general of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng had left as well. The Tian Yuan clan seemed to have returned to the past. He knew that all the status and glory that the Tian Yuan clan possessed came from Ming Dong and Ming Xie. Now that they had left, he expected the Tian Yuan clan's status to plummet. Although there was still Su Ran, how could she be compared to a divine general of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng? Suddenly, Jian Chen looked at the sky. He frowned slightly. He could sense several dozen powerful senses of the soul moving around in the air. Moreover, these were only the senses of the soul that he could discover. There would definitely be more hidden away. All the formations cast down by Ming Xie have been destroyed. I should be able to repair them a little, said Su Ran before immediately beginning to fix the formations. Jian Chen, what should we do next? Shiyu arrived before Jian Chen. She was basically responsible for all the miscellaneous matters of the Tian Yuan clan now. If people don't make trouble for us, we won't make trouble for them. Let's continue like before, Jian Chen said calmly. The cloud plane settled down very soon. It was as if it had returned to its past quietness. The disturbance from the Tian Yuan clan gradually faded away as well. Although Ming Dong and the Divine General's departure had completely changed the Tian Yuan clan's force of deterrence, there was still no one willing to provoke them. On this day, the interplanar teleportation formation newly erected by the Four Symbols Alliance suddenly shone with dazzling light in the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire. When the light faded away, two figures appeared in the teleportation formation. One of them was a graceful, handsome young man. His head was slightly tilted back as arrogance filled his face. As he looked at the people in the surroundings, his gaze was filled with a hint of contempt. The other person was an old man. He seemed like an old servant. He did not seem special and stood out in no particular way. However, this old man was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. It was just that he had hid his cultivation very well, so ordinary people could not tell his strength. Young master, we've arrived on the cloud plane, the old man said to the young man carefully after emerging from the teleportation formation. He acted extremely submissively. Although all primordial realm experts were figures who would enjoy some status in any organization, the young Star Lord's identity was just too special. He was the only child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. As a result, even though the old man was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, he still acted politely before the young Star Lord. Chapter 2562, The Gentle Breeze Ancestor. As the young Star Lord set foot on the cloud plain, a ruddy old man in azure robes sat within the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance, cultivating in seclusion. This old man was one of the 5 experts of the Four Symbols Alliance. People called him the Gentle Breeze Ancestor. Suddenly, the power of laws around the Gentle Breeze Ancestor pulsed. He slowly opened his eyes. Strange? Why did my heart tremor? It's as if something is about to happen. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor furrowed his brows and murmured to himself. Afterwards, he formed a seal with his hands. The light in his old eyes deepened as he began to peer into the heavenly secrets. The countless stars twinkle as they welcome him. Someone of extraordinary status has arrived on the cloud plain. This person is a terrifying force who can affect the future of our Four Symbols Alliance. Very soon, the Gentle Breeze Ancestor's eyes lit up. He expanded the tremendous senses of his soul to envelop the entire cloud plain. Just who is this important figure? I found him. Is it him? The Gentle Breeze Ancestor's eyes narrowed, and he vanished. No wonder the cloud plain basically ranks at the bottom of the 49 Great Plains in the Saints' world. The origin energy here is far thinner than our star brilliance place. In the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire, the young Star Lord studied his surroundings like he was judging it, gently shaking his head. The cultivators here are so weak. It's such a big city, and there are only so many God Kings. They completely pale to our star brilliance plane. The young Star Lord looked at the surrounding cultivators with some disappointment. As if he was better than them, his face carried some scorn and contempt. Ha ha ha, the star brilliance plane is under the watch of the famed 9 brilliant Star Lord. A single thought from an expert like the 9 brilliant Star Lord can change the fortune of an entire plane. Our measly cloud plane naturally pales in comparison. At this moment, an old voice rang out. An old man in azure robes appeared before the young Star Lord silently. He stroked his beard as he smiled pleasantly. He was one of the 5 peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance, the Gentle Breeze Ancestor. Old man, who are you? How dare you eavesdrop on my words? You sure are bold. The young Star Lord crossed his arms and became displeased. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor's expression stiffened when he was called an old man despite being one of the peak experts of the cloud plane. He was slightly angered, and his smile disappeared as well. He said indifferently, "People call me the Gentle Breeze Ancestor." If it were not for the fact that the Gentle Breeze Ancestor found out the young man was of extraordinary origins and could affect the fate of the Four Symbols Alliance, the Gentle Breeze Ancestor would have never been so friendly. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor? One of the 5 grand exalts of the Four Symbols Alliance. A gleam of light flashed through the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime old man's eyes. He looked at the Gentle Breeze Ancestor without any particular feelings and said, "This is the young master of the star brilliance plane. People call him the young Star Lord." The young Star Lord? The Gentle Breeze Ancestor was surprised when he heard that. He stared at the young Star Lord in shock as he became unsettled. So it's the young Star Lord who has come to visit. I failed to anticipate your visit, so please forgive me. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor immediately changed his attitude. All the displeasure he felt vanished. Although he had never seen the young Star Lord before, he did know quite a lot about him. He was the only child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord and was not in existence that he could afford to offend. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor's attitude changed completely. With a face full of smiles, he politely invited the young Star Lord to visit the Four Symbols Alliance. At the same time, he began to peer into the young Star Lord's identity. If the young Star Lord was lying, the Gentle Breeze Ancestor could easily peer into his past and future with his cultivation as a 2nd heavenly layer Grand Prime. If he really was the young Star Lord, then the Gentle Breeze ancestor definitely would not be able to see anything with the 9 brilliant Star Lord's protection. As a result, determining the true identity of the young Star Lord was very easy to some peak experts. However, in the next moment, the Gentle Breeze ancestor's mind suddenly shuddered. 9 brilliant balls of light suddenly appeared in his mind as he peered into the matters of the young Star Lord. They possessed a supreme pressure and a presence revered by all. It's the 9 brilliant Star Lord. The Gentle Breeze ancestor was surprised. He actually saw an apparition of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. With that, there were no longer any doubts about the young Star Lord's identity. The Gentle Breeze ancestor dared not neglect him. As a matter of fact, he began treating the young Star Lord with importance that even exceeded Ming Dong. However, the young Star Lord was proud. He did not take the Four Symbols Alliance seriously, turning down the Gentle Breeze ancestor with a single sentence before drifting away. Young Star Lord, our Four Symbols Alliance still happens to bear some influence on the cloud plane. If our Four Symbols Alliance can assist the young Star Lord in any shape or form in the future, please come to our headquarters directly. Alternatively, you can crush this jade talisman. The Gentle Breeze ancestor tossed a jade talisman to the young Star Lord's bodyguard. He did not remain any longer because he knew that doing so would only create an opposite effect. After returning to the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance, the Gentle Breeze ancestor immediately called the 4 other decision-makers together. The 5 experts gathered together in a majestic hall. What? Gentle Breeze, you say that the legendary foster son of the 9 brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord, has come to the cloud plane? The 4 others were surprised when they received the news. The Gentle Breeze ancestor nodded and said, there are no doubts about his identity. He's indeed the young Star Lord from the Star Brilliance plane. The young Star Lord's foster father is the 9 brilliant Star Lord, and behind the 9 brilliant Star Lord is the Blood Tier Grand Exalt. We can't allow anything to happen to the young Star Lord on the cloud plane, or we will face a crisis. The 4 other people were stern. They reached the same, terrifying conclusion very soon as well. Although they were also Grand Primes, they were all early Grand Primes. The disparity between them and the 9 brilliant Star Lord, a 9th heavenly layer Grand Prime, was like the glow of the moon compared to the radiance of the sun. They were on completely different levels. The young Star Lord's safety is obviously extremely important. However, his arrival is a great opportunity for our Four Symbols Alliance to change our fate, said the Gentle Breeze ancestor slowly. The Lord of the Heavens Link peak of the Righteous Alliance reached the peak of the 3rd heavenly layer many years ago. Now that the heavenless demon Exalt is dead, he has become the undisputed strongest expert on the cloud plane. Who knows when he'll break through to the 4th heavenly layer? However, I am certain that the day the Lord of the Heavens Link peak breaks through is the day that our Four Symbols Alliance will be destroyed. As a result, we need to establish ties with someone powerful if we want to continue existing. Chapter 2563, The Might of the Laws of Space. The Gentle Breeze ancestors' words made the 4 other supreme experts of the Four Symbols Alliance sink into deep thought. All of them furrowed their brows sternly. They all understood that while the Four Symbols Alliance and Righteous Alliance seemed to have agreed to a ceasefire on the surface, this was only temporary. This had only happened because the Four Symbols Alliance had gained a Grand Prime, lessening their difference in strength compared to the Righteous Alliance. Coupled with how the people of the Righteous Alliance were not in complete agreement, prioritizing their own safety in battle without going all out, the Righteous Alliance could not help but agree to a ceasefire with the Four Symbols Alliance. Once the Righteous Alliance gained the power to crush them in an overwhelming manner, the ceasefire agreement would be no different from a thin piece of paper. As a result, the Four Symbols Alliance was indeed in desperate need of allying themselves with someone or something powerful. The young Star Lord's appearance has indeed given our Four Symbols Alliance an opportunity. We have to rope him in regardless of the price, and we also have to keep the matter of the young Star Lord an absolute secret so that the Righteous Alliance doesn't learn about him. I hope that the young Star Lord won't be as unapproachable as Ming Dong, the Four Symbols Alliance made their decision very quickly. Jianchen cultivated within his residence inside the Tian Yuan clan. Suddenly, there was a knock on his door. After he gave them permission to enter, Shiyu, who was responsible for most of the affairs in the clan, hurried in. Shiyu, what has made you so hurried? A gleam of interest flashed through Jianchen's eyes when he saw how hurried Shiyu was. Patriarch, someone has come to visit. He said that he's the young Star Lord of the Star Brilliance Plane. I don't know who the young Star Lord is, but he seems to come from very great origins. As soon as he stated his identity, Senior Su immediately told me to come find you secretly, Shiyu said in a hurry. She realized that this person's identity was probably extraordinary since Su Ran had personally spoken on this matter. Basically everyone knew what the young Star Lord represented on the Star Brilliance Plane, but everyone who knew the name was basically important figures or people of great origins beyond the Star Brilliance Plane. Shiyu clearly was not on the level where she could come into contact with such information, so she naturally did not know who the young Star Lord was. The young Star Lord of the Star Brilliance Plane? Jianchen furrowed his brows. He had been to the Star Brilliance Plane, so he had naturally heard about the young Star Lord before. When he crossed through space on a spatial battleship, he had met many juniors of peak clans who went as far as to cross the Sea of Stars just to congratulate the young Star Lord on his birthday. As a result, he was familiar with the young Star Lord. He was the foster son of a supreme expert, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. His identity was extraordinary. Jianchen stood up and left his residence. He went to the hall that was specially used to receive esteemed guests and saw the legendary young Star Lord. Currently, the young Star Lord sat lazily in a chair. His legs were placed on the table before him as he played around with a spiritual fruit in his hand. He seemed very bored. The old man who had come with him stood beside the young Star Lord quietly like an old servant. Jianchen looked at the young man. He studied him as he clasped his hands. You must be the renowned young Star Lord. Greetings. I am the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Jianchen. The young Star Lord did not adjust his posture. He looked up and glanced at Jianchen. He took him lightly. Jianchen. I've heard of you. You got real lucky somewhere and picked up the Anata Tower, and then you fled across the Saints' world. In the end, you hid on the desolate plain for a few years. The young Star Lord said indifferently, but his attitude and tone exposed his contempt. Jianchen smiled indifferently, acting as if he could not hear the young Star Lord's tone at all. He said relaxedly, the young Star Lord possesses a great status and identity, yet you've heard of me. That's a great honor for me. The young Star Lord clenched his hands slightly and crushed the spiritual fruit he was holding. Milky white juice flowed out, filling the entire room with a heavy fragrance. Although the spiritual fruit had not reached the god tier, it was not of a low quality. It was extremely valuable, such that even across the entire Tian Yuan clan, there were not many of them. You're actually using such low-quality spiritual fruits to receive your guests. Isn't the Tian Yuan clan far too stingy? Or should I say that the Tian Yuan clan doesn't take me seriously? The young Star Lord shook his hand in disdain as if he was afraid that the juice would dirty him. Before Jianchen could reply, he continued, you were hunted down by so many experts, yet you're still able to survive until now. I need to say that you have really good luck. Of course not, young Star Lord. I only barely survived, Jianchen said without any particular modesty or haughtiness. As he looked at the fruit that the young Star Lord had crushed, a sliver of coldness appeared in his eyes. He said, the Tian Yuan clan is only a small place, nowhere close to being as wealthy as the Star Brilliance Plane. Please forgive us if we've received you poorly. Enough, you don't need to explain anymore. I know your Tian Yuan clan is only a small clan on the Cloud Plane. Whatever you can take out will naturally be unpresentable to those of higher status. Call Shangwan Moore over. I've come to the Tianyin clan to meet the successor of the third ancestor, the young Star Lord said arrogantly. I may have to disappoint the young Star Lord. Mu'er is currently in secluded cultivation, so she's not meeting anyone. Jian Chen's voice gradually turned cold. He finally understood why the young Star Lord had come now. The young Star Lord's face immediately sank when he heard that. His gaze became piercing. How dare you? The old man behind the young Star Lord called out. His presence as a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime radiated outwards, crushing down on Jian Chen in an overwhelming manner. He growled and said, "Didn't you heard what the young Star Lord said? As long as the young Star Lord wants to see someone, it doesn't matter who she is or what she is doing. She is supposed to stop whatever she's doing and come here immediately." Jian Chen stood still under the presence of the ninth heavenly layer infinite prime. His eyes became cold as he stared right at the old man and young Star Lord sharply. He said, "Mu'er's cultivation is more important than anything else. Even if your foster father, the 9 brilliant Star Lord, was here, would not let him interfere with Mu'er's cultivation, let alone you. Jian Chen, how dare you speak ill of the Star Lord?" The old man was furious. Like a bolt of lightning, he flew towards Jian Chen. He had already readied his hand to slap Jian Chen. However, at this moment, the surrounding space began to pulse and distort slightly. Afterwards, the old man became as slow as a snail. He should have been as swift as lightning, but he became as slow as a regular human. He leapt 2 meters away, and at the same time, he had already swung his hand, hitting nothing with a cold gust of wind. His posture seemed extremely strange. He was over 10 meters away from Jian Chen. In the end, all that happened was that he jumped 2 meters and swung his hand. The laws of space. The old man narrowed his eyes in surprise. He had never heard that Jian Chen's laws of space had reached such a level from the information he possessed. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.